those bands are because they're
Right.
and those bands are around.
It's off the radar for
they're
sure.
just like, I don't know. I've never heard of that band. It is weird. It is weird now seeing the circles and everything. I mean, you probably have experienced it now playing music
yeah.
in the scene for what, 13 years?
Yeah. Since coming back to Chicago and 13 years. Yeah.
Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah,
Why don't we started it. We're just
Oh,
going.
okay.
Tell everyone who you are and where you're from and kind of because I only know you through pure music.
Oh,
so
yeah.
maybe we could start with like when you started playing, what got you into music, what instruments, things like
Okay.
that.
Oh, yeah. My name's Mike Altergott. I kind of go with my production work under the name Malta Audio. And I'm a multi-instrumentalist. Going back to the beginning, I grew up in Elmhurst and kind of started playing music, learning classical piano. So that was my origin.
I didn't know that.
Big time fan of Chopin. I really loved like Russian Romantic period. So like Rachmaninoff would be a great example of that. That's that kind of really aggressive, big, loud piano stuff.
And what is this like 1820s to like 1880s or something?
Yeah, pretty much into the 1900s too.
And why Russian? I always hear this about Russian music. What is it about it? What do you think made them make that kind of music? The struggle.
The struggle,
Yeah.
yeah. Like you're in winter, like life it's cheap if you don't have the struggle. You can't appreciate the good parts of it, right? And I think the struggle in Russia must have been more extreme than what
I think it always kind of
we
has
even
been
have here.
for a bit. Yeah, their poetry, their art, their music is something like top notch. It's something else.
Yeah, and like you see it with the literature too. There's just this like almost this different perspective on things, since I think people, the common person in Russia has probably had it pretty rough.
Yeah, and it also kind of seems like they're one of some of the other few people in far Eastern Europe that live what we now see as like the Caucasian lifestyle, but not from the Western experience, because they're so far east and they deal with a lot of Asia and the Middle East and other things too, that it's almost like they're like a different kind of European that that we're not so used to. We're so used to like the Anglo-Saxon, the Western European, but they're like Eastern Europe is so different. And
and it continues all the way to the Pacific Ocean. I mean,
it goes far. That's what I'm saying. It's very different.
Largest country on earth. Yeah,
I know. I forgot. It's like 11 time zones or something wild like that.
Yeah. So something special about
Russia,
that style of classical music, and I think that kind of informs a little bit what I like in terms of music that has strong emotional content and is kind of loud and just kind of bold, and really hard to play that stuff on piano though. If you ever try and play Rachmaninoff, it's got to have big hands, and it's just like he's doing like 12, 13 note stretches with one hand.
Wow.
And so it can be a challenge to play, but I loved it. But then you contrast that with like your impressionist composers like a Debussy, a very delicate. I do love classical music, and I don't get to play it as much as I would like, because it's hard to get into, especially if you grow up playing on we had like a Dusty upright. It's like a Chickering brand piano, not like anything fancy, pretty dead. So like hard, you really had to dig into that thing. And so I think, you get finely tuned to a certain touch, and then it's just not the same playing on plastic keys,
No, unless you can get like really, really nice keyboards, the ones that are 5,000, 8,000, But even then, it's not the same as playing on a real wooden baby grand or, Did you ever play on like a full grand?
Yeah. So, my piano teacher had a full grand, and then, when I went to high school, they had practice rooms with both, so it's kind of neat to. You get such more dynamic range out of a full grand than
oh my god,
a Dusty upright where I'm hammering it away.
Yeah.
So I found that my touch, I kind of developed a heavy touch, but you learn a little bit.
How old were you when you first started playing?
Probably like 4 or 5,
4 or 5.
and then continued on all the way up until I started picking up saxophone for like wind ensemble. Probably starting like 4th, 5th grade, about there, and then
Okay.
kind of transitioned that into jazz in high school. So it did like the standard.
Yeah, that sounds
like,
pretty classic.
like wind ensemble and classical piano, and then was doing jazz big band. I played piano in the big band, and then saxophone in the jazz combo, and then kind of swapped the next year. So I was always kind of doing a little like CrossFit. If
You
you
did a
think
lot of
about-
music though.
Yeah, a
So
lot.
from 5 throughout all high school.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been playing your whole life.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you're 33,
35.
35, but we're the same age.
Yeah.
Right.
Turning
I always
36
forget that.
this
For some
year.
reason, I
It's,
always feel like 1 year older or 2 years
I'm
older.
on the wrong side of 35.
Me too. When do you turn 36?
November.
You're older than I am.
Ah.
I'm December 14th. Look at that.
Oh, well, we're not that far off.
No, we're like the exact.
I'm November 18th, so.
We're less than a month from each other. We're like the exact same age. That's fun. Cool. Okay, so we can relate on everything then. And you grew up in Elmhurst. I grew up in Hickory Hills, so even similar locations.
Oh, yeah, not far
We're like
away.
the
Just,
same people. We have
hop down,
classes.
Route 83,
Yeah, exactly. You didn't want to go to Elmhurst College? They have a good music
Oh, they have
school.
a great music school, great program. But, a part of what my life journey took me on is I have Crohn's disease. So it's something that I've struggled on and off with since high school. And, I really just, had to be pragmatic about it. And I really needed to make sure as I entered adulthood that I had access to health insurance. Because if I didn't, like my medication.
Isn't that sad?
$7,000 a
Isn't
month
that sad that
without
it couldn't
insurance.
just be taken care of and you
I
could
know.
have followed, you could have just done, I think I know where you're getting at,
Yeah.
like U of I. And
Yeah. So
a very pragmatic job.
Yeah. Fast forward to, I was always a math and science person too. So it's, I was like, engineering seems like something that would give me a platform of stability so I could, also get investment for buying all the professional music equipment I needed,
Smart.
And so I kind of went that route of doing full-time engineering work right out of college. But
And what's the focus? What was your engineering?
I was mechanical.
And this is at University of Illinois
Yeah.
in Urbana-Champaign, which is a great engineer.
It
One of the
was
best in
a
the
challenge.
country.
Yeah, it certainly. Let's just say I had to learn how to study for a test there.
Which is good.
Yeah, I mean,
You want engineers, especially mechanical, to be 100% precise.
Yeah, it was
Kinda needs to
tough.
be.
It woke me up because everyone, no matter where you are in life, you're eventually going to reach some point where you get humbled by just how talented and smart other people are around you, and I think that was something that very much caught me when I was at U of I. Is from two perspectives. One was, the people I was engaging with in my classes were seemingly, way ahead of me in terms of motivation for why they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a big kind of wake-up call of the work required to be a dedicated, serious engineer. Really made me, I had to adjust my perspective and mature and grow up a bit.
Yeah. It's a really competitive field too.
Yeah. And it's, the job matters. If you mess up on the job, like
People die.
yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it can happen.
It can. You're like, I don't want to go there, but I'm just thinking.
I've seen some, with my work in engineering field, I've seen some safety videos of like what can happen when people are not paying attention. So, but then the other side of it too is, that's just part of like a mental boot camp.
Yeah.
You think about it, it's like problem solving boot camp. It kind of teaches you to analyze things, from cause and effect chains. And so it kind of changed the way I thought about problem solving. And so I guess that's the best. And then I met a whole cohort of wonderful friends and just.
U of I has a great music scene.
Yeah.
Huge music scene.
And it was so, doing that and then, playing in college. It started out with like college house party.
How did you get into
situation.
the music scene at U of I?
I just started playing music with some friends. I think a friend I met through open mics, a wonderful singer, songwriter named Justin Tanaka. He's a great guy. He kind of came to us. I had a house with a basement, which was unfinished, and you could
yes.
like feel
Perfect.
the draft.
Perfect time to play shows.
Yeah, it's like you could feel the draft because there was like quarter size to like, you know, softball size holes in the foundation that you could just look outside. So, you know, when we're practicing there in winter, your fingers would go numb if
Yeah.
you're like playing bass, especially. That stuff would get so cold. But,
Was it your freshman year you had a house? I thought you had to do dorms the
junior
freshman
year.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was going
yeah.
to say, dorms are usually freshman year at least,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Mhm. Yeah, and then, so we had a house junior year, and, you know, west of us was a parking lot. South of us was a parking lot. Southwest of us was a grocery store. And then the only neighbors we really had were, you know, this apartment building to the east of us and a house north of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then people I knew moved into the house north of us, and then a bunch of my friends moved into the apartment building
Oh, so
east
you
of
were
us.
set. You were
So we had
hooked
this
up.
little corner, yeah,
Mhm.
with a 24/7 grocery store, kitty corner from us, which was super nice.
Dangerous.
Dangerous. I mean, I think it
Dangerous.
ruined my perspective on cooking for a
Yeah.
while because you could literally, you know, fire up the stove or, you know, fire up your oven and then go across the street and decide what food you want to cook.
You can shop per meal. Like you can
Yeah.
buy it every day, like what you want.
And it's not even really a waste.
you
You
need a
know?
refrigerator.
Yeah, it's pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, man, that's fun. And that's dangerous because you just turned 21.
Oh,
in
and
November.
they sold kegs. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So
do you have house shows?
yeah, we would have house shows. You know, we'd be playing house parties with kegs and you know, doing like Strokes and Killers covers. You know, fun music for.
It's 2010.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
It's the heyday of that. And so that's kind of where
Smartphones aren't everywhere yet.
Oh, yeah.
You can have a house show and people aren't putting it on the internet, getting you in trouble.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
And you know, the best part about having your friends for your neighbors is no one's calling that in.
No.
So.
It's kind of like a mutual assured destruction.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
exactly.
like everyone has a nuke. No one's gonna tell on anyone. You know.
Yeah, I mean, college was a blast. I admittedly had to learn a little bit about myself because I think maybe the balance of fun versus studying may have gotten tipped into the fun scales a little too far at
That's
times.
the problem with those party universities.
I know, and that's the problem with U of I engineering too. Is it will quickly catch up with you if you're not staying focused and on top of things. So there was a time I was on academic probation. But, you know, you learn. And you start to recognize those people at all the other parties, you know?
Yeah, that's just so they can like metaphorically slap you in the face, be like, "Hey, get your act together." I was on it too, but at a community college. That's how bad I was. Not even at a prestigious engineering program, you know. I was just in community college.
Yeah, I mean,
but
our
having a bad
brains-
time is having a bad time, or like not being aware of your surroundings or mature or going through something can happen at any
Oh, yeah.
college. It could happen when you're not even in school. You could just be working.
And looking back, you know, I just, I wasn't really taking stock of how much, you know, this chronic illness was affecting me on a
Right.
day-to-day basis.
Because you're so young at that point.
So young and like, you
It's not
just,
as
like,
bad yet either.
You wake up
right?
and I'm like, you just wake up, things gradually change over time, right? And
Alcohol's
so,
probably rough.
yeah, and you wake up and you're like, you get like searing pain every day and like you don't even realize like that's not normal.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't understand that like, oh, maybe I'm falling asleep in class every day because it's like one of those situations where
Yeah.
you're just drained of energy and caffeine doesn't even do it. Caffeine actually
Makes it worse.
Makes it worse,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's you know, fortunately, you know, fast forward to the end of college, you know, I had met this whole wonderful network of musicians, though, and
For those listening, U of I, like Pygmalion, is there, which
yeah.
only started a few years before you got there.
yeah, wonderful
And
festival.
great big music scene there. A lot of awesome bands have come out of there, just kind of setting the stage for the listeners. Man, I realize it's probably one of the biggest college music scenes in the Midwest, you know?
Yeah, and
Easily.
it's cool too because there's a thriving scene that exists outside of the university that's really unique to the local town itself.
Absolutely.
And then you'd get the crossover between, you know, students who took the time to meet people from the community outside of the university, and that where that kind of balance happened was, I thought, the most rewarding part because there one person in particular that really was just kind of almost like a guide for me. It was Ryan Groff out of this band called Elsinore, and he just could not be a more kind human being, almost like a father figure to people, right? And just this really, really talented vocalist and songwriter who I learned a lot from him about how to sing. I took singing lessons from him in his studio, which he built in his backyard, which is one of the coolest things I've
That's
ever
awesome.
seen. And and it's a similar thing too, like why Chicago has a lot of access to touring groups of all sizes that come through is the spectrum of venues that are there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's places to play, right? In Champaign-Urbana, you had DIY shows left and right, whether it's, people in the student house or, the stuff that's closer to campus, whether you're Champaign or you're on the Urbana side, where these wonderful old homes with like cobblestone streets. I lived there for a couple years after I
Cool Victorian
graduated.
homes.
Yeah, big
Yeah.
wraparound porches, and then
Bloomington Normal has a lot of those. Too.
Yeah, right.
Super cool homes.
Central
from,
Illinois has like that.
Yeah, just all because we forget those schools are around from like the 1850s and 60s,
Mm-hmm.
and like so clearly, the wealthy folks that were establishing that establishment, the administration, the professors, the investors, the bankers, they built these amazing, glorious blocks, and Urbana has more of them.
It's
but
just
they're
like
amazing.
I still can remember, taking a nap on the porch and just the sound of the wind kind of rustling through these like willow trees, like all over the place.
Yeah.
Just gorgeous. And like they had the thing where the backyards would go like 50 feet back, and you'd have these just giant open kind of shared backyard areas between the blocks. So you'd have these huge bonfire parties that would happen, and you'd see like 3-4 houses on the same thing have bonfire parties. They all kind of merge into
Everyone
one
goes
thing.
back and forth.
Yeah,
I know what that's like.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
It is fun. I miss having a big lot. And I don't like fences because I grew up without them. And it's nice having that shared back and forth with your neighbors. That's why DZ Fest was able to feel so big because everyone kind of would spread across my neighbors' yards and they would come in.
Oh, yeah. And your neighbors were like, they're awesome.
They were
you know?
awesome about it. And we, if their kids were playing sports and their ball, or they like went into I always told them like, use my yard. I don't care. Play football back here. Like,
Yeah.
almost like we know we're not going to sue each other if we get hurt.
Right.
Kind of
right.
old school mentality. Whereas now I feel people are always scared about that.
Yeah.
If kids came onto someone's yard, they're like, no, get off here, because if they get hurt, they're afraid of.
Have you thought about the liability insurance?
I feel like that's just a modern American thing. We used to never be that way.
Yeah.
It became popular to try to get money a quick way by like screwing somebody else over.
I
Just
mean-
because your kid like chipped his tooth, it's like, I'm sure the kid will be okay just because he chipped his tooth. Or broken arm. Who hasn't broken an arm?
Yeah. I just broke a wrist this year. You know?
Really?
Yeah.
Doing what?
Playing soccer.
I was going to say either
Playing soccer
skateboarding or
against
soccer.
25-year-olds. Yeah.
Oh my God, you can't do that.
I'm starting to slow down.
You were talking about that when we were recording.
Yeah, because it still gives me a little bit of pause playing piano, which is because I just, again, when you grow up playing classical piano, it's just I have an expectation of what I can do, and then go to play, and it's like, I can't really, I don't have the dexterity. It was like turning the wrist is still kind of dicey.
Oh, after breaking it?
Yeah.
How'd you break it? You just fell on it? Or?
Yeah, I was running full speed, and somebody like body checked me, and I,
And these
I
are
may-
25-year-olds are playing?
Yeah, I may have deserved it a little bit, but I hit a sidewalk.
Oh.
And so as I'm like running, full speed, full intensity soccer, I'm like rotating in midair. I'm like, well, there's the one, ADA access sidewalk patch on this soccer field. Like it's there for a good reason. It's just
I was going to say, why is there a sidewalk so close to the field? I feel like it
know.
would be a little bit further away.
I went back and I showed my wife's a landscape architect, and I was like, Maddie, why is there a sidewalk
should not
patch?
be there.
I pulled up the satellite map, and she's like, well, it's for ADA access, and it's like required by law. I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Makes sense, but you'd think there'd be another like a 10-foot stretch
I know.
before it meets at the same height level of
Yeah.
the or ground. You know what I mean?
But they don't, the city of Chicago with the turf fields, they're as small
tight.
as
It's tight.
possible. Yeah. And,
Oh, that's where you were playing it.
Concrete strip
Yeah.
around it. So
I've never played on turf.
it's fun, but watch out for those sidewalks. They'll
I like
get
the
you.
mud.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah. There's
the
something about just like, slopping around in the mud.
In a patch of rock or clay getting cut up.
Yeah.
So you're playing with these young. Why are you playing with such young bucks? Do you really think you can keep up with someone 10 years?
I can until I can't.
That's the thing. You can until you can't, and then they can keep going,
Okay.
and that's the big difference. It's just like a capacity that you remember being 25.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's when we kind of first started meeting and working together. Like, I could have done 10 bands a day at that rate. Now
Exactly.
I'm like, just one, please. It's too much. And it's just 10 years later,
Yeah, and that's so, transitioning from U of I to where I met you was actually through people in the U of I music scene.
Yeah,
So
the 92s,
92s,
a cool hand.
Cool Hand. That was Justin. He was the lead singer and songwriter of that group.
Oh, okay. That was I forgot. the
Yeah.
names,
So
okay.
yeah, we I pulled up that spreadsheet. Hold on, let me
Right. I'm
grab
trying to
that.
think too. A cool hand, 92s,
Because I think it was 18 videos.
18 videos.
Yeah, 18 videos.
And for those listening, we're talking about DZ Records live video sessions and DZ Fest and Intimate Evenings.
Oh yeah. Spectrum.
You came in and sessions and Friends of Music podcast. I think you did that
Yeah.
a while ago with when my cousin Matt was interviewing.
Yep.
So
Oh yeah. I took
11
him to a
years.
basketball game.
yeah, I remember he told me about that, the
It
Bulls
was
game.
Wild. We our friend had somehow like a family connection had
Box.
some box seats and
Oh.
like we show up and like Matt rolls up. I roll up with like a rusted out like 94 Nissan Maxima, like where the suspension was falling off a month later. He rolls up in like a rusted out PT Cruiser.
the white one, the PT Cruiser. Yeah.
We're showing up, we all have like shoulder length hair and like, unkempt facial hair and like we probably, needed a shower and
Yeah.
like these people at this like fancy like secret entrance like gave us like a invisible stamp. It was like 4 layers of security to get into this place. And when we get in there, it was an all you can eat buffet, all you can drink
Per room.
per room and
Yeah.
somebody
Order
would,
whatever you want.
would serve us and we're like there's like a coat rack in each room and we're like what are we doing here? And then
your own bathroom.
the side eye that we got from people in the buffet line because
Isn't it
we're
the
like
best?
we're just taking one of each and we're we smoked weed in the parking lot. Let's be
course.
honest,
How could you not? I would too. in
parked
the
next to like a
bathroom.
Maserati and like all these
Ferrari, Porsche.
yeah, and it's like the parking lot. I couldn't even believe it. It was right next to the side of the stadium, so it's like you park your car and you walk
so
like 10
convenient,
feet
yeah.
into this private entrance that's not even marked too. It's
like if you know, you know.
Yeah, it's like a Harry Potter thing. It's like the entrance like 10.5 or something.
Isn't it crazy too that there are people that's just every sporting event for them? That's
Yeah,
what they do.
or that's just like how they travel.
It's everything. Yeah.
I mean, it just opens your eyes to like, oh, there is a different way of life that we don't have access to and we'll never.
No, I don't know how, but somehow I've been clever enough with my life to find myself randomly in those circles through my girlfriend and other people and clients and friends and just doing music stuff for a long time. Once in a while, you get like a cool look into like what is truly like to be like a multimillionaire.
Oh yeah.
And it is fun because I know I only get like that one moment, like that 2.5 hours you got.
Yeah.
So in those moments, I just lean into it. I will be extra crazy, extra
yeah.
filthy. Just who cares?
Oh,
I'm not supposed to be
I still
here.
remember Matt going to the dessert table and he was like, I'm going to get one of each, like of
Yeah.
every dessert. And we just brought him back and we're like, why not?
It's gonna get
know?
thrown out anyway, or the people working there are just gonna eat them, take them home to their
Yeah.
kids.
We
That's
just
just what happens.
Absolutely stuffed ourselves. It was great. The
it's
Bulls, it was
so
like the
unfair,
last game
right?
of the year too, and they're playing, I think, like an NBA worst team. I can't even tell you.
So
who
nobody
won
was
the
even
game.
paying
Yeah,
attention. Just
nobody.
partying, drinking, eating. It's unfair. Those events when you get to go in a box suite. I've done it at the Cubs game a few times. My aunt works for Gatorade, so once in a while I get the bat signal like you want to
Oh,
come
yeah.
to the Cubs suite
When they're
and it's
playing the
best.
worst team or it's a bad
I don't even
day
know.
or-
I never care who they're playing because it's the best experience of all time. The best food, the best drinks, whatever you want. It makes everything else so sad. Like when you got to go sit in the sun and you pay $10 for a hot dog and it's the bread's hard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's like a big gap. It's like decent seats, nice seats, and then you skyrocket to like these box seats that are amazing. But it also makes it kind of hard to pay attention to the game because it's too much
How
fun.
can you do it? I'm
It's
just
too
like-
much fun. Chicken fingers and wings and
Oh, yeah.
hamburgers.
Yeah, it's wild, and it just it caught me too that they gave a laminated sheet with how to pronounce all the players' names.
Oh my
So if you're
God.
like some like fancy business person, you don't want to look like an asshole. Like,
Yeah, you know what to say. I mean, that's what those box seats are for. They're not
Yeah.
for a fan to enjoy the
Right.
game. They're for schmoozing and business deals.
Yeah.
They're for companies to bring clients there to.
capitalism.
That's why there's so much free drinks and like stuff that you can't find on the menus and in the normal part of the parks.
Yeah.
It's to get more
Well,
money.
that's a fun sidebar with. Yeah, I hope Matt's doing.
Matt's
all right.
great. Matt's
Yeah.
great. He's missing every moment of. I hope he hears this. He's missing every moment of DZ Fest. We'll get it back, Matt. Yeah. So what we're getting at is you've been through a lot. 18
Oh yeah,
times.
18 videos. Yeah. So let's see. Here we go. First one is in June of 2014 with the 92s, and then we're back 3 months later with A Cool Hand. And then next year it was Namorado for a live show. I think that was like a Thanksgiving
Intimate evening at the Yearkers. Yep, Thanksgiving.
And then we did Namorado came back and did a session, and then in 2016 came back and did DZ Fest.
Were you in Monkey Fluff?
And then and then we got to Monkey Fluff, which was my
2017.
2017.
See, I don't remember that.
Yeah, with our friend Jacqueline. And Ryan Nolan. He's Jacqueline is in Rustring now.
Oh, nice.
And then Ryan Nolan is front person for Football Head.
Who was singing? Ryan?
Well, it was our friend Harry.
Harry was singing.
Harry, and then our friend Pat. He lives in St. Louis.
Okay.
And Harry is singing in a band called Freezer Geezer. And so
he had a hair like Danny McBride. He reminded me of him in that video.
Yeah, he was
just
probably rocking
like
the
a mullet, a curly mullet,
definitely.
and he had like this look, and I was like, dude, that's what he looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, Harry's great as front person. Well, I absolutely love all of those people too. They're still like, very, very good friends.
Nuclear
of mine.
Girl. I loved that
Yeah,
song. That song's great.
Yeah, we were actually just texting about it because as
Really?
I was putting this together, I went back and I had to hit them with some of these videos. So, but that was a fun time because I had never actually played drums before. And so I was like, I should probably learn how to play drums. And so, I watched back in that video where I was probably like 4 or 5 months into learning how to play drums and like some dicey technique there. But, you can't teach vibe, right?
No,
And I feel like that we all vibed. I was probably the weakest musician in that sense in that whole group for sure. But well, you know what? Everyone else carried me in my sloppiness.
No one would know. No one would know.
But yeah, and then Namorado came back for another intimate evening and another DZ Fest, and then came back with
right here.
Space Skaters. Oh yeah,
2018
yep,
Space Skaters, right here.
yep. Oh yeah,
Skaters.
posters right there.
Namorado right there. Is there Namorado here?
Let's see. First DV. Oh, 2016.
2016 Namorado. Okay, so
Yep,
16.
yeah, there it is.
There.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then Space Skaters would have been 2019.
2019.
And then Uma Blue 2021 DZ Fest.
Yes,
Yep,
and
there it
Space
is.
Skaters.
Yep.
No, Space Skaters not 2021. Yeah. So yeah. Wow.
Oh, with a noticeable gap 2020. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I wonder what happened that
yeah,
summer.
me too. Oh, that sucked. That whole thing was terrible.
Yeah.
I did not enjoy that. I even pushed 2021 to September. That was the
Oh,
only
yeah.
time it was not in July. They're all July with
Gotcha.
that.
Yeah, because I was like, I remember the vaccine dropped like April, May, June, something
It was
like
April
that.
or June. It started becoming
And then
accessible.
that summer was just like a huge exhale for everybody.
And it pushed all of the festivals that were normally summer to the fall. Like
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
Pitchfork, everything got pushed to like the fall
Wow.
because of that, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a scary time, man.
That was 5 years ago.
which is wild to think
Yeah,
about.
that was mid-March 2020. Now it's March 31st, 2025. Wow. Half a decade ago.
The only one I think we're missing is I did one more session in 2019 with Fovely.
Right, with
Yeah.
Foley. Okay. Were you there when they played an intimate evening too?
I wasn't. I think that was just Sophie and Dale.
Something. Okay.
But Sophie, she moved to Savannah, Georgia.
Moved back home.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. She's from there, and
yeah.
start a family. She's got a cute kid now, and I think
Still making music.
yeah. She's still making music.
Great.
I think I just saw a video of her doing some recording, so I'll have to check up and see
Yeah.
how that's gone.
I always liked her music. Very,
yeah.
very great music.
She's a great songwriter, and I think her husband is a chef as well. So I think they have like a restaurant that they opened up down.
Yeah.
and so
That sounds
if
fun.
you
Music
visit in-
and food. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go to Savannah. I'm gonna come visit in Savannah.
Yeah, her friend that they record with has like a house converted into a studio, from what I gather. That
I've
looks
never
really
been
cool.
there, Savannah. I've always wanted to go.
Apparently, it's gorgeous. So I mean, people there now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go down there. Let's do some sessions down there.
Yeah.
I love traveling. Dude.
Or just do some, sound location recording
Yeah.
of like just a local, go to a local park at dusk and see what
Forrest
kind of
Gump,
animals
Forrest
are there.
Gump bench.
Yeah,
record what it
exactly.
sounds like to be Forrest Gump.
They had a friend who did, speaking of that and pandemic, I had a friend who did a bunch of sound recording during the pandemic of traditionally jammed spaces, but like empty and haunting.
Yeah.
So like you're at like a train station in Chicago, you know, like go to Ogilvy, but you record it and it's just like silent.
You record it March 22nd, 2020 on a Tuesday at
Yeah.
10 a.m. and it's nothing.
Like go out, I think like going out near like the highway when it's like rush hour on a weekday morning, and there's just like a couple cars driving by.
That's the one thing I liked about it was how silent, how quiet, not really silent, but how quiet it got. How the sonic, like the sonic elements of a city that normally are bouncing off all the steel and concrete, the highway, the 994, all that slowed down. The airplanes in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
All of it dropped and it got quiet. It got really quiet. It went from like an average of just like 65, 70 decibels outside to just like 30.
Yeah, just the latent,
super quiet.
latent background, you know, sound floor.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem with cities. You don't realize it until you get out into the middle of nowhere, you know,
Yeah.
as you
And you're
experience
like, why
in U
is
of
it
I,
so?
you know?
Yeah, why is it so soothing? And
so
like, why can
calm
I
and
sleep so
relaxing.
much better?
It's the same
Like
problem.
darker and no sound, right?
Yeah, no light pollution and no sound pollution and no air pollution. It's the best of both. It's the
Yeah.
trifecta, you know.
Well, you know, we like creating art and we like the people in the community.
We do.
Here.
It's a bittersweet thing, this city. I
Yeah.
swear to God, when you have to like re-up your sticker for your car and then your license plate and then your parking pass for the socks, and if you mess up one of them, they all like cancel each other out.
Oh yeah,
It's the worst.
Yep.
And, like if you don't have your city sticker, the rest you get tickets for every. Oh, it's terrible.
I had a friend who had to take a trip and didn't realize their city sticker expired.
oh no.
They come back from, you know, those are like $300 each.
I know. I've gotten them.
Yeah.
They're horrible tickets.
So he comes back and his car was street parked for a week, stacked.
Oh no, they just kept stacking.
4 of them.
And that's why this city.
Yeah, the
sometimes
city is
sucks.
just like jackpot.
And you know they don't get that money?
$1,200.
You know that money goes to a company that bought the parking. Well, at least for parking tickets, like for parking. So all the parking, when you pay for parking, like the meters with
Like
your
the
app,
green
with
thing,
your app
yeah.
or with your debit card, all of that money goes to a company that bought it. I think it was Daley, the last Daley, when he left office late 2000s. I think it was before Blagojevich came in. No, he was not Blagojevich. Rahm Emanuel before he came in. He like sold the parking rights and the money that they'd make
Oh,
it to
I
this
did hear
company. I
about
think
that.
it's a company in Saudi Arabia. I don't know. But
Yeah,
no,
it's
it's
like
not in
100-year
America.
contract,
It's-
right?
Yeah, it
Or
was like a
some crazy-
99-year contract for like $1 billion, but their revenue they're going to make is tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions, because
Oh my gosh.
it's all these millions of people paying for parking, which is normal, but every day, every hour for 100 years,
That's crazy.
give or take.
Right, and
which
you
is
know they're-
millions of people,
It's
millions.
privatized, so they're going to jack up the rates. When
They could do whatever they
decide to,
want.
Yeah.
And so the city doesn't get any. You know how much wealthier our city would be if every year we were taking in billions of dollars in parking revenue? We wouldn't have these issues we have. And it was all for a quick billion, which is not
Right.
worth it because
Yeah, I'll take a quick billion.
billion sounds like a lot, but not to a city this
No,
big that
no.
has like, probably does $900 billion a year in GDP. Like $1 billion is nothing to us. So
Right.
why would you do that? It's
I mean, that sounds like the folly,
short-sighted,
yeah,
short-sighted.
short-sighted folly of capitalism, right? It's just
well, it made him look good leaving because I think it got rid of the city deficit for like that year.
for that 1 year.
Yeah, of course it would. It's $1
Right.
billion bucks. Usually that's what it would take. So he looked great leaving, great legacy. Not a great legacy over a century.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep,
man.
it's bad. And I think the same concept is happening with the Skyway. When you leave on 90
Yep.
to take the Skyway, that price, that heavy ticket you pay
Mm-hmm.
to get on, doesn't go to Chicago. It's a private company that owns it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean,
So terrible.
soon to be our federal government, right?
I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about what's going on with that?
The privatization, that's what's going on, to put it kindly. But yeah,
Let's
that's
talk about something.
Yeah,
let's
let's
go back to
transition
music.
away from that.
Back to
yeah.
music. Yeah, you've been coming through for a while.
Yeah, so it's and it's cool to see like how your setup has evolved over time too.
Yeah.
Like the first time I went to DZ Fest versus the last time, it's like, all right, this year there's like improved subwoofers, like more powerful PA system. Then another year there's like buried cables. Like it was cool to watch, you evolve as your own artist in that sense too.
Thank you. It was fun. I learned every year so much about the bands, how to talk with them, how to provide the equipment. there's so many little tricks, and the cables, doing the right power. I became an unofficial electrical engineer in my own right, because my old house was not good and not accurate with power. I had to measure every outlet and every breaker because they were all off.
Yeah.
Some would have 110 volts, some would be 120 volts, some would be 108 volts, and they would just rotate. Some were grounded properly, some were some were not. Some would make the other one not be grounded by if you had them plugged in the wrong way. It would complete a loop. So many problems. It was weird. It was so weird.
I just ran into that issue in my basement.
Yeah.
I have power conditioners, but I foolishly did not have my desktop, workstation plugged into a conditioner. And I just wasn't thinking, I should know better. Like I know how electricity works. And I was in a basement, with a space heater, and I had it plugged into the same circuit as my desktop computer and kept cycling it every time I turned on and off the space heater.
Mm-hmm.
And it fried my hard drive and my CPU.
Damn.
So watch out with, those space heaters.
Yes, be careful with space heaters.
They're glorious, necessary in a basement, especially my basement doesn't even have any heat of any kind. We just slapped a hole into one of those HVAC for one of the units. So it bleeds a little bit of heat down there, but
that's it.
So that's currently a huge pain for me because I have this desktop that I've had for a long time that I now need to replace, and that is not, it's one thing to have a new computer, but to get a new proper one that's going to be a studio workhorse.
They're a lot.
I'm anxious.
Yeah. No, they're a lot. It's thousands
in this
of
economy.
Dollars. I know.
Yeah.
I know. And then it's good for only 5-6 years, and then you have to get a new one.
But I will be doing a much more deep dive look at the circuits now. Now that you mention that, I didn't think to check the voltage because
test all of them, make sure that they're getting the right voltage, make sure that they're in the right phase, things aren't flipped. I had one where the leads were flipped, so I had to plug it in upset. It's messy.
Whoa.
Yeah. My grandpa did the old wiring. It's an old house. Some of the wires were just wrapped in cloth, not grounded. Yeah. I had to do a lot of my own
That's
grounding.
A classic Chicago thing, too. Mm-hmm. Building I'm in currently has cloth wiring. And
it's terrible.
Yeah, it hasn't burned down. It's been, 100 years. But, at the same time, it's
it just takes one.
It's scary.
It's
right?
terrifying. Yeah. I think this house is pretty much all updated electronics. I could just tell. I could just tell after living in a house forever that was a DIY slap job.
Oh, yeah.
That this house definitely has everything functioning right.
It's like that video that keeps floating around Instagram reels and stuff where somebody's checking out a DIY circuit box and is talking to an old woman.
I know what you're talking about.
And it's oh, my nephew Johnny did that. And he's like, oh, what year did his house burn down? And she's like, oh, it was how did you know that?
Yeah. It's a really funny one. It's a fake video, right?
Yeah. There's no way that's real.
No, it was it looked like someone just did that for fun. It looks crazy.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that's I can use an amp meter, a voltmeter to check out a potential across something, but to actually undo it, there's a reason there's certified professionals for that.
Yes. Yeah, when it comes to all the trade jobs, the one where you have the least amount of physical harm and danger and losing limbs and falling is being an electrician, and you get to work all year round. But the most substantial risk and the end result could be the most catastrophic would be an electrician because people can get electrocuted or you can burn houses down left and right.
Yeah.
So that's pretty bad. But you get to work with your hand. You're not lifting heavy stuff most of the time compared to other pipe fitter, concrete, carpenter. But mistakes can be catastrophic, So it's I would like to be an electrician if I went that path because of that reason.
It'd be cool to know that stuff a lot more in depth so I could
you could teach yourself.
Make my own amp,
You could definitely teach yourself. You have such a good background in engineering that you could even understand all the math and the simple equations for understanding it. It wouldn't be, you probably already do know them, to be honest.
Yeah, a little P equals IV.
Yeah.
I took a circuitry, as part of our requirement, And
Yeah.
we do some stuff. I think that's why I picked mechanical, because it's
Yeah, why did you pick mechanical?
you deal with all sorts of, it's kind of a jack of all trades. So we did a little bit of computer programming, a little bit of electrical engineering, and then a little bit of like your kind of structural engineering stuff. And then it's also happens with, mechanisms that are in motion. So you have to deal with dynamics in addition to like static calculations. So it was kind of, I kind of just picked one that could be used for a lot of things. And then, I got my sub focus was in renewable energy. So
Oh, cool.
I think I still do some contract work to fill gaps. So, fast forward to now, and I have been able to mostly pay my bills through music, which has been,
That's great.
it's been a challenge for sure.
Wait, so when you graduated, in 2012,
Yeah.
you went straight into work?
Yep. So I was working full time. At that time, it was for a company. It was just a job I could find in Champaign, because my current wife, who was girlfriend back then, was still she was still a student. So I stayed down for like another year and a half and worked a steel industry job of all things.
Oh, okay.
So I was a mechanical engineer for a company that made, there's this giant like ceramic bathtubs, basically like a coffee cup if you had a little spout on the bottom. And that's where the liquid steel comes out when they're, pouring it into whatever molds they do. So we made the fancy mechanisms at the bottom of those.
What are those made out of?
Those are, all sorts of, you have a ceramic insert so that when the molten steel hits it, then that can handle the heat. But those get consumed over time. They have to be swapped out.
Yeah, okay.
But other than that, it's just, heavy steel alloys that have high melting points. But
I always wondered how they get, it's almost like the chicken or the egg. Like, how do you get the steel to the hottest one? How do you make the form that makes the hottest steel when the one that has to come before it has to be strong enough to handle the heat? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, ceramics.
So it starts with ceramics.
Yeah, so
Ceramics is the one that gets the forms going because it can handle it above steel.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So think like the space shuttle when it comes in from the
Ceramic
atmosphere,
plates.
it has ceramic heat shield plates
Yeah.
on it. Yeah, and that was the source of the what was the more recent one? It was Challenger was old Columbia, the one that burned up
2003
on reentry was. I think a chunk of ice fell off and knocked loose one single tile of heat shielding on the wing. And so then when it came back to re-enter, it had that little gap, and then it just melted the whole shuttle from the inside out.
And how hot is that temperature?
Yeah, I mean,
15,000
who
degrees,
knows?
10,000
Yeah,
degrees.
yeah.
Man.
It was just, it's again, engineering. That was like, it's humbling when stuff goes wrong. You have to do a serious job
To reverse engineer and learn, and then that's
Yeah.
all safety protocols or people dying.
But it's all, what did it boil down to, really? If you keep on going deeper and deeper. So the job after steel industry I had was in a process analyst for a machine shop that made all sorts of high precision parts. So you have to keep asking why. If you want to be a process oriented problem solver, you can't just say why once. You got to ask it 5 times. And if you keep asking why, why did the shuttle burn up? Well, the tile fell off. Why did the tile fall off? Because this thing, fell off and hit it. You keep asking why. Why was it able to have that failure?
It had that effect.
Because
on it,
oh, wait a second. Then you realize the design of the space shuttle was only ever a prototype. And why
It
was
was?
that a prototype is because the prototype they developed was so successful that instead of then developing the actual reusable, shuttle, which was supposed to be a new design from scratch based on lessons learned, they just in the 80s there was like a Reagan thing where they're like, oh, we don't want to spend the money, this thing works, okay, we'll just use it. And
death.
that was never designed to be reusable as a prototype. And so it's like that kind of thinking that is very prevalent, and that's served me well in the transition into recording and live sound. Which
How
was
did that
kind of-
happen? That transition.
Um,
and
so-
when did it happen?
I want to say, it was about the pandemic time, right? Like the early days where the virus was rolling around, but we didn't know it yet, right? Late 2019, early 2020. I have a dear friend of mine who was playing drums in the recent session we just did for the solo tunes. His name's Steven. And, I'm thick as thieves with this guy. He's just Somebody described him to me when I first met him as he's a drummer with jazz chops and a heart of gold. It's just one of those people that just makes everyone around him just feel warm and feel seen, and he got me involved with a company called Trinity Irish Dance Company. So it's a dance company that has a live band as part of its show, and they do some traditional Irish step dance. You've kind of seen that stuff before. Think your St. Patrick's Day
River dance.
Yeah, I mean, River dance is like the big name.
I just remember that when I was younger.
Oh yeah, I mean the thing that's all on TV, right? And that's the most like kind of commercially visible.
Okay.
But actually, the Chicago-based company, the artistic director was kind of the pioneer that got Irish dance put on the map. He got his company before it was like a big professional entity. He got on Johnny Carson in like the late 80s. So a little bit of, company lore, right? So the Chicago-based company is actually the original one. And then, this person who he danced with growing up, turns out, saw his contemporary get on TV and then created the commercial response to that.
Okay.
So Trinity, they do a lot of really interesting things with the art form. They do a lot of collaborations with choreographers and dancers of different styles of dance. And so you'll have elements of traditional Irish step. My little sister was a dancer.
Okay.
So I kind of grew up in that environment a little bit. There is an academy side that's huge too in the Chicago area. Trinity is kind of like the biggest name in that in Chicago.
Okay.
And so you have traditional step dance and then a little bit more modern contemporary pieces. You have other pieces that are kind of more centered on the music, and you have this like live band. So imagine if it's like kind of the bombastic energy of like U2 or something like that, right? With like an Irish fiddle player too. So there's like elements of like, alternative rock and roll, modern contemporary dance, but then also blended with the Irish kind of classic folk traditions. So it was really interesting.
That is interesting.
Super interesting. And they needed help with the backing track because they had their premiere at Auditorium Theater in Chicago.
Nice.
So it's like that's the kind of caliber,
That's high end.
Yeah, like really just beautiful opera houses, symphonic, halls, like
Civic Opera House.
Yeah. In Chicago, they've been kind of their home base has been Auditorium for a while, but now their next run of shows, it's going to be at the MCA. So
nice.
Little smaller theater, but instead of only having one show, they're going to have a run of a few shows.
Okay.
But so they needed help with backing tracks, so I kind of started out in a studio capacity to kind of do the mad scramble to get this thing ready because this is February 28th, 2020.
Oh wow!
So it was like really right before the tsunami just crested right on all of us.
Wait, I think that was right before we played. Didn't we play a show together around that time at Cole's? Didn't Space Game?
Yeah.
Was that November 7th, 2020?
2019, yeah.
Oh, was it November or was it? I thought we played right before that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's wild. Like just looking at how oblivious we were, and it was around. I have a friend who worked at the Revival Kitchen, the Revival Food Hall downtown, and he was saying that like end of November, early December 2020, like 90% of the people who worked there all went down with some crazy flu, right? So it was circulating.
Sure.
It just hadn't hit the vulnerable people yet, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so I did this, and then pandemic hit, and then after the pandemic, they kind of reached out and then asked me about if I would be interested in doing live sound for them. And so that was, I'd done live sound at like small clubs, and it was definitely a step up.
Were you always just doing it kind of like on the side while you were working as a mechanical engineer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it wasn't something that necessarily had been a primary focus of mine. So one of my good buddies in Space Gators, Alex, he's a drummer, but first, and then he was kind of he was my live sound guru in that sense, who walked me through a lot of like near panic attacks in the early days.
Well, a lot of those guys did live sound,
Yeah,
right? Because I remember
And he's
Trevor
been-
knew them. Trevor Roberts,
Yeah,
knew them
definitely, yeah.
from Columbia.
Yep, Alex, and he definitely knows Trevor from those days. And he's been on what did he do last year? The Blackpink K-pop tour. I mean, he's top of the game.
That's awesome.
So I did have like a phone a friend when I would
Phone a friend.
walk into the place. The challenge was, I think early on for me is it's such a complex show. There's so many things that had to be like really precisely linked up. So I had to learn the show itself. And then every time we would get to a new venue, there would be the problem of, it's a new soundboard. I haven't, encountered this manufacturer. So I'm like watching YouTube videos. And it's just that kind of the workflow. It's tough,
Oh, yeah.
When you're doing live sound, it's so much. I guess I didn't realize how much of it is actually physical.
Yeah.
Because you have to have kind of a muscle memory because you're managing, a 48 input show that has 14 microphones on the floor for taps, right? And they're doing taps, but they have to have Marley tape over the floor because the carbon fiber shoes will slip on the wood. And so there's like this, the Marley muffles the taps, but in order to get the taps, we have to have a really intense microphone array. But then you think about, okay, good venues that are acoustically treated that are more of a theater house, then it's no problem with the live band and all of that, and then side fills for the dancers to hear the backing tracks. But when we're getting to the more symphonic wind ensemble, chamber halls that have like a resonator shell behind the stage that are designed to feed back, then, that's like, okay, feedback
Huge
was a
problem with
massive
microphones,
problem.
yeah.
Yeah. And so,
What kind of microphones would you use for the tapping?
we have some boundary mics on the edge of the floor, and then, a combination of like long and short pencil shotguns.
They're all condensers, though?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. But
And how do you deal with all the low rumble of the tapping versus the low rumble of the acoustic space just building up naturally?
you have to, seek and destroy and
Seek and destroy. Surgery.
Yeah, you have to intentionally excite the room to get those resonant nodes, and then based on each room, then you kind of have to do that with the side fills too. Hatchet job on the side fills. Side fills is just give them what they can, barely need to be able to stay in time with it.
Are they doing in-ear monitors all for that
The
kind of stuff?
musicians are, yeah.
But not the dancers.
Not the dancers, yeah. I mean, the dancers, they got better sense of time than musicians, right?
Yes, they do.
It's like
They got the best
they are
sense.
percussionists, right?
Yeah.
And it is so impressive. They're percussionists and professional athletes. It's just
amazing.
so impressive. And, the people in the company are all just wonderful, right?
Man, I want to see this.
It's a cool
when's
show.
Do you still do it?
It's in May. So it'll be
You
like
still do sound for it?
yeah. So the weekend we put together a new show last year, an entirely new show that has like 7 platform riser stages, and it's a little bit more music focused and less focused on like the big step ensemble pieces. It's more. It's kind of a new concept that the artistic director had for a long time, and we finally put it to fruition last year. But also much more challenging setup. So doing that, we required having a second engineer with us on that tour, and I was kind of more mad because I did all the backing tracks and mixed them. Now you have to create them to be able to work with in-ear monitor system and the side fills and the venue and keep everyone together. And so kind of, just big learning process that the engineering training I had super handy with this because I know all the
Mechanical
physics behind it.
Yeah. Yes. It's
And
mostly that.
And
you
you're
realize.
thinking like, oh yeah, okay. All the talk about like frequency ranges and stuff. It's just, what's your resonance frequency of this room? You find all the nodes. You find one that might be hidden, and then, with the microphones on the floor for the taps, sometimes it's unfortunate when the resonant problems of a room for feedback also overlap with the best areas of the spectrum for definition, and that's always where it's like, well, okay, we're going to be in sound reinforcement mode rather than sound projection mode, and so then you kind of have to bring everything down. I've been kind of moving to get rid of the bass amp on the stage, right? because that low buildup is nasty. And, you want a little bit of ability to have some of the thump of the dancers, right? So you got to have some of that low end in the subs, but as soon as you have a kick drum and bass amp going into those floor mics, then
Too much.
you can't get it. Yeah, it's just too much, right? So anything we can do to reduce stage volume is important. And the venues we're at, those PA systems are fantastic. So it made me think, as like I'm going to be going on tour this summer as a bass player with Steven, with a band he knows from New Orleans. So I'm really
What's the band?
They're called Juno Dunes. They're
Nice.
really great, really catchy songs. It's gonna be fun.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, this is gonna be great. I'm just gonna be a bass player. I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna tune my bass, and I'm gonna plug it in, and that's gonna be my setup.
Yeah. And were you going all over the country?
Just around the Midwest.
Midwest, cool.
Not a super long one, but it'll be nice. I haven't gotten to do that kind of touring in a while. Because the dance company is. I think last year we were pretty much gone from the end of January to the end of March.
Oh,
so
2 months! Wow.
Yeah, it was a really awesome experience.
Where'd you go? Over America?
All over. So all over America for that one. So it was like, we as far down as Los Angeles, all the way up to Fairbanks, Alaska.
Whoa! What was Alaska like?
Oh, it was nuts. So that's where we began the tour. Was
began in Alaska.
Our first show was we had our tech weekend end of January, and then we flew up maybe like February 2nd, we flew up to Anchorage and had a show there. It was like, negative 25 Fahrenheit. And it felt pretty cold. But then we're at the airport at 4 a.m. and because we have to fly to Fairbanks the next day, and we have to do a whole setup and do that show. And, the plane can't take off because it's negative 45, and they're like, the wind chill's negative 75.
Oh my God.
And they're like, this plane, it's too cold. It's too cold. It has to warm up to negative 32 before we'd be like allowed to fly this plane.
Oh my God.
And we're sitting there like, oh no, this is like the second time we're ever performing like the new show, right? And so, which we normally ideally would like 7 or 8 hours to do the setup, right? Because it's that complex. And we're like, all right, well, we'll see what we have to do. We end up being able to fly out at like 2 or 3 p.m. So we get to Fairbanks at, 4:35, and technically doors are at 7:30.
Oh my God.
And when we land, all the air tags of our tech production equipment. So to solve the problem of previous tours, we got our own stage box and our own front of house, like a SQ5, the Allen and Heath. Amazing. You can travel with that thing in a flight case. It's all in Anchorage on a different plane. All the instruments, all of the costumes, all the set decorations.
How did this happen?
It's just the chaos of winter, right? And
So what happened?
So we show up, and fortunately, we had been on the phone with all the people in Alaska, in Fairbanks. So they had like an old stagecraft or something. They had a 48 input front of house board at some warehouse. The guy went home and got his own guitar and bass, and that's what the band used for the show. One of the dancers got her bag of clothes, and so they raided that for some like costumes. Fortunately, she had like a ton of athletic wear. So like, it was just
you made it work.
Made it work.
Did anybody notice in the crowd?
Nobody noticed. So we had
That's
to delay
amazing.
by 30 minutes because I was still frantic. And fortunately, they coordinated the wireless for the packs. Like they did a great job of us when we walked in. They were like, "All right, we just have to plug in your stuff and we'll get rolling here." And fortunately, I had a carry-on with all of our microphones. So one of the most important things for that consistency, we had our own package of microphones that we carry with us now. And so at least that was controlled. But oh my goodness. So we're like sound checking, and I'm feeding back microphones with Henry, who's out front of house, and I'm scrambling on stage. As the people are walking in, we're still, and not even getting to a sound check. It's just verifying that all the stuff's plugged in, right? But all the people in Fairbanks were so hearty, and they understood, and they were probably just delightful. They're delighted that they had something they could take their kids to.
Yeah, because they don't have much up there.
It's negative 45. There's 2 hours of sunlight. right? The
Yeah.
sun like kind of barely gets up over the horizon. It's up for a little bit and then dips back down.
No hope. So anything is great.
Yeah,
Anything
so,
works.
and it was like a city of, I don't think it's like 25, 30,000 people. Like 1,000 people showed up. Like
Wow.
a sizable percentage of that entire city showed up to that show, which makes it worth it, you know? And people, banded together. And this is the kind of stuff you see on tour. You're just like, it's amazing to see, people overcoming extreme circumstances. And that's the kind of inspiring part about show business, right? It's like, we still made that show happen,
Yeah, and the best part is like people didn't really notice. If they did, it wasn't that big of a deal,
Yeah.
And the show must go on, and
Show must
you
go
made
on,
it
yeah.
work, and probably wouldn't have been able to do it if you didn't have so much experience.
Yeah.
To be able to handle.
And
that
fortunately,
kind of audible,
having a tour season the year before to kind of figure out, and then also a Japan tour the summer after that.
Oh, you did Japan?
So we did another
Whoa.
tour.
What was Japan like?
Oh, it's just fantastic. That was nice because we had a local Japanese tech crew that we rolled with, right? And we're kind of the consultants. So they would handle, once we taught them our setup and how all the specifics of how we want it fine-tuned, then they were just like incredibly professional about replicating that. I've never seen a crew of people tear down, like it's like a theater production, right?
Oh yeah, it sounds like
The lighting is a whole nother thing. There's like really, really complicated lighting rig where it's like a Broadway show, right? And seeing this Japanese crew, like, man, they had that stage stripped down and a truck packed in probably 40 minutes. And then that truck is driving overnight to the next city. And then the tech crew were on like a bullet train, a few hours later.
That's what you did?
Yeah.
What was the bullet train like?
Oh, just unreal. They're so nice. They're so spacious. There's people, it's like on an airplane when they come by with a cart.
Yeah.
If you want like, apple juice, you want beer, you want a snack, like.
Does it feel like you're going like 200 miles an hour?
It does when you look outside.
How fast are they going?
Yeah, 220 miles per hour.
We need those here in
Oh,
America.
they're so smooth though. It's just, you don't even feel.
It's hovering, right? Just.
Some of them are maglev, yeah. And that's just
That's probably up your alley.
Yeah. There's no friction when you're just hovering due to magnets, right?
Yeah. Just air friction.
Yeah. Right.
That's it. So, wow.
But
that one's wild.
But so that was, something like 16 shows in 13 cities in 18 days. So that was
That's
a
intense.
learning experience. Yeah, and talking about being in the 30s, I'm like, I think I slept for, I don't know, maybe like 4 days straight when I got home from that.
Imagine if you were able to do it at 22 instead of 32.
Right. I would have been just like, doing like pull-ups on the subway,
Probably also would have made more mistakes, though.
Yeah.
Not enough experience.
Yeah. And so I think
So that's what you've been doing mostly at that gig?
Yeah, for live sound. And then, usually their main season is like spring, end of winter to spring. It's usually centered around like St. Patrick's Day. Is pretty big in the Irish arts community.
I would
right?
imagine.
But and then the Japan tour is over summer. But then, usually in the fall we'll be helping either tweak pieces, working on sound design for new pieces, or the previous year it was setting up an entire new show from scratch. So there's a lot of work to do that year. But it was cool. It certainly was a lot of work to keep me busy, and working with an established artistic director who has been, in this position for 30 years. It's you do learn a lot about artistry, what questions to ask, attention to detail, all of that, right?
Yeah.
And we also a highlight last year is we made a piece that got on Jimmy Fallon, which was crazy.
Really?
So they had a little appearance kind of leading up to a St. Patrick's Day on Jimmy Fallon, which is wild because then I'm like,
you guys went to Jimmy Fallon?
yeah, I had to stay home because I was on call because they had obviously their broadcast, audio engineer who they have handle it, but prepared everything with stems so that they could kind of mix it as they need, because then the Roots played along live to the backing track.
That's fun.
So it's kind of funny.
That's really cool. What was that
like
like to watch?
Questlove may have overplayed the hi-hats a little bit. You know what I mean? If I was there, maybe I would have said something.
That's so funny.
If I was there, I would have been like, shaking in my pants, But maybe I would have had to say something, But,
Man, that's really cool.
But it's so it's taken me all over the world it's gotten a lot of experience that I think I wouldn't have gotten otherwise, which
Yeah.
has been really helpful with, going back to a studio setting. So I
Sure.
just finished recorded, mixed, and produced a record for a good friend of mine named Hannah, and there we go. Steven is drumming in that band as well.
Mhm.
The band,
What's her band?
it's called Middle Sister. So we
Middle
just
Sister,
played a
okay.
show at Shuba's record release earlier this year,
Very nice.
and that's when I decided I needed to see a doctor because
Why?
that was the broken wrist.
The wrist.
So I'm like, wait, I can barely play piano with this thing.
Oh my
so
god.
it's
Did
getting
you get
older.
a cast or anything? when you broke it?
It was a fracture, fortunately. So I do have a cast, or
splint.
an intense like brace.
Yeah.
So if I have to do any sort of lifting, or I'm still playing soccer, of course.
Yeah.
But
When did you break it?
it was kind of November, and then I didn't realize it was broken, and I kept playing, and one of those situations where
Oh my goodness.
I was like, we're up big in a game. I'm going to play some goalie. Let the goalie go get some goals, And then I made a great save. I dove. I was like, oh, I got this. And then I rolled over the wrist, and it was just like, okay, this is not. That's when it started. That's when it was like,
You do
giant
not want it to
bruise,
heal the wrong
and it
way.
was- yeah. So, yeah. Anyways, the life catches up with you if you don't listen to your body. Certainly in your 30s, it starts to fall apart a lot faster.
Especially from the 20s and teens decision making.
Yeah.
What you decided to do then comes back to haunt you.
And I don't think physically I would have been able to handle any of this touring stuff if I didn't have a pretty intense intestinal surgery in 2020. That was
wow.
kind of the culmination of that progress of the disease of mine from high school to now, was that scar tissue was building up, and you step on a garden hose, nothing's getting through, right? So I had scar tissue kind of strangling one of my intestines. Had to have that cut out. It was like medieval science, right? They're like, this body part's broken. So like, snip it out, throw it away,
Just
sew it back
Connect
up.
it and it's good?
It's like my life
do that?
changed.
Really?
Everything about my quality of life immediately was on 180.
What is that? And that's from Crohn's?
Yeah.
What was it? What happened to it? It just...
Autoimmune, so body attacks itself over time. Scar tissue builds up, and then over time it loses its stretchiness, right? So it gets like hardened, and then basically like I ate an apple once. I was recording with a friend of mine, Maria. Her band's named Fran.
Oh, yeah. Fran's great.
Yeah, so it was a long time in the past, early EP that she did before she got the full band put together. And
Picture window, perfect. It's such a great record. I have it on vinyl upstairs. What is it called? It's a red one. It's a red
Yeah.
record. Came out in like 2000.
I'm actually, my memory is terrible with words. So as you probably
I'm close to it.
got
Am I
a
right?
glimpse.
You
yeah,
hear
oh,
me?
yeah.
It's,
Yep.
it's a great record. I love
Yep.
it.
You probably got a glimpse of that, considering when I was doing my own songs in the studio, I had to have lyrics.
Yes.
I can't remember words. My
Yeah.
brain works fascinatingly in some ways, and then terribly in others.
Yeah.
Everyone has their weakness, right?
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
it's just
You were eating
where
an
are we going
apple.
with it? Oh, ate
Fran.
an
I was just
apple.
saying, Fran,
Yeah.
you guys played DZ.
Oh yeah, I ate an apple. I was like, yeah, this sounds like a really healthy studio snack. I'll just do it. And then I had to go to the ER.
Oh, my God. What happened?
Just intestinal blockage, And when a blockage happens, you put a water balloon on a hose for too long, pops, right?
Boom.
So it's one of those situations where when that would happen, yeah, once I got that cut out, then it was just my whole life. I was just, why didn't I do that sooner? I had this thing that was just killing me for 15 years.
That was that same issue was going on
Yeah.
for 15
I mean,
years.
it got worse and worse over time, right? And that's like that scope, the creep of the scope over time just gets, you kind of lose your ability to remember what it used to be like.
And that was in 2021 you did that?
2020, yeah.
2020? And
So,
it's been great since?
I mean, knock on wood. I don't know, not wood, but
No
whatever.
wood here.
Yeah.
I'll knock on this
Yeah,
for you.
there we go.
Wow. Oh, that's great. That
So it's,
sounds terrible.
Yeah, and there was kind of like my whole fear about Crohn's disease preventing me from being able to do touring musician and make it a professional, like, kind of was founded,
Yeah.
And, then when I got that surgery, then I was able to physically handle the rigors of a tour. And now I'm, turning 36. I'm like, I'm getting tired.
Mm-hmm.
But,
It's hard to tour. People
it's
don't
tough.
realize how hard it is. on the
Yeah, I
body.
mean, that year I was telling you about, I think in February we took 24 flights
Ooh.
in 1 month. So it was,
In 1 month.
yeah. We had a lot of like connecting flights. I mean,
That's
that
exhausting,
tour,
though.
the only way it could work was we had to fly everywhere. And all of the set decoration, instruments, tech equipment.
Sounds
It was all
expensive.
in flight Pelicans.
That sounds
right?
really expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
How much are these tickets for the show on average?
Probably like something like $50 to $75.
And how many people do you normally have?
Anywhere from like 1,200 to like the bigger venues, maybe like twice that. When we were in Chicago, that'd be something like in the 3,000 to 4,000 range.
Okay, so good range, probably between like $100,000 to $200,000.
Yeah, yeah. Fortunately, I don't have to be the person that figures out that part of it.
I'm just saying, basically,
Yeah.
if you have $50 tickets, 4,000 means 200,000.
It's probably like something like 100, 200 like per show.
Yeah.
Something in that ballpark. Yeah, that's not far off.
That's awesome.
But it's certainly an eye-opening experience, And then, you get back to a studio and you're like, oh, I have all this time. Feedback, not a problem.
Not a problem. You got other problems, though.
Other problems where it's like, okay, now you have all the time in the world, and now you can...
You got this. This is more this problem. Live sound, it's just in the moment, and it's like gut and hard work and your heart. And then in the studio, it's all a game against your brain and your mind and your
Second-guessing
imagination.
yourself.
Second-guessing,
Gosh,
overthinking, trying something new.
How many times do you
You're
make a
dealing with
mix and then you like listen to it on a different system and you're like, you know what? I didn't hear that. I have
You
to
don't
go
have
back
that problem
and
with
do
live
it.
sound. As
Yeah.
it happens, it came and went. It's
done.
It's gone.
Yep.
No one can complain like, hey, I keep hearing it. Like, no, that song's over with. Like, whatever was bad happened and went, and you don't have time to ruminate and sit there and wait, rewind it, listen. No, it doesn't matter. So it's why I always tell musicians like to not talk about how like when they're messing up and stuff, like on stage, like nobody knows.
Yeah.
Don't say it. They don't know.
Yeah.
I promise you they don't know. Even if you think they do, even if you think you're so important, people know you messed up, they don't. And if you did, they'll think it's just part of that, like, it's almost cute. It's like it's part of like the live sound lore.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, they played the song differently. It's kind of fun. It's never really a bad thing. Or if you mess up bad enough, you can almost turn into a joke. There's humor in it,
Oh, yeah. And that's the guy who was playing lead guitar, Mike. So Mike and Brian, he played bass. They were in a different band in the Champaign, music scene. And I always admired Mike because it's like if he made a mistake, he would just toss his head back and laugh, And it's just like that's the approach to making a mistake. Is you just like have yourself a big old laugh, and then you're just like, this guy's having a blast up there,
Instead of beating yourself up,
Yeah.
complaining to the audience about how you messed up, don't do that.
Yeah, it's too bad. He was just being cautious because he was getting sick. So he was the guy with the mask on. Kind of had like the hat and the mask.
He kind of hidden away. He's hiding in the
Otherwise, you'd have
corner.
seen him. You'd have seen that big old smile on his face the whole time.
Man, it's interesting that you got into live sound after doing engineering, but you probably started to realize why it's called engineering.
Yeah. I mean,
a lot of people
much...
will be like, why are you guys called like audio engineers? Like, it's like, if you understand the definition of engineering is to like create and make something with using actual forms of technology or mathematics or quantifying something.
Yeah, scientific principles. Right?
Principles. Having a hypotheses, and figuring things out. You do that doing this.
Yeah.
It's just in a different way. So
just
you had to do
cool.
a lot
physics
and engineering to do your job.
Oh yeah, and that's
like
like
a ton of it.
And then the mesh of it is that since I'm a performer myself and I love recording and producing stuff, I have this nice mesh between being a performer and being a scientist, and I think that's helps to create a well-rounded approach to what does something need to sound like live.
Yeah,
and I'm getting better about trying to not second guess myself in a mixing setting. It's just sometimes you just get down these rabbit holes, and then you like listen back to your mix from 2 weeks prior, and you're like, this sounded better. I just wasted all my time.
Yeah.
And that is the beauty of live sound. It's like it just happens. It's a thing that happens in that space at that moment. It's an experience, right?
You spend most of your time just like setting up, getting levels.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
where you spend most of the time. But once it's happening, you get to that autopilot zone,
And you need to have the scientific background in order to understand, to give yourself a platform for consistency, right?
It's all physics.
Yeah.
It's all physics. And if you're really
Sound
good
wave
at it,
propagation and just
all of
thinking
it.
about. And so that's one of the things I do to fill the gap in my budget, right? As a struggling musician. is that I do academic tutoring in math and science.
Oh, okay.
And I just had a physics student yesterday that I was helping for his sound wave, his waves test. And so it was all these questions about if you designed a music venue, what substance would you put on the walls and why? Make sure to use interference in your answer. It's like, oh, this is my wheelhouse, man.
And
So I had to
what
just
would you
be
tell
like,
'em?
all right, I'll let the student tell me, and then I'll give them some context. And it's just like, would you want ceramic tile, or would you want a nice, like, I don't know, maybe foam?
It was that
substance?
easy?
Yeah. It was that basic.
How old is he?
This is like a sophomore in high school. So
Okay, I
It's like-
forget it. Yeah, if this was something I was asking my students, I'd be like, if any of you get this wrong, I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna brand you because it's college.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
teaching
like,
college.
you should know
If
by
you
now.
you didn't
yeah.
have to know anything about sound to
Yeah.
know that you would not choose a hard object over a soft object if you're trying to dampen sound. It's pretty basic stuff that everyone can
yeah.
figure out growing up.
Right.
Just in your bedroom with your parents, like you put up soft stuff. You want to be quiet. That's cool.
It's
though.
cool though, because then you talk to them about it from the perspective of constructive and destructive interference, and it's like both are bad. If you ever, and that's why I use the example to him. I was like, you ever go see a show? He said he's a big like EDM and hip hop fan.
Mm-hmm.
Great style of music with tons of low end energy, right?
So much.
I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, go see a show at United Center. I was like, what'd you think? It was like, it's never gonna sound good in there. And it's just impossible, right?
Mm-hmm.
That building has way too many reflection points. You get all sorts of build up. And then you walk. You walk in a 30-foot radius across the entire floor, do a sweep. It's gonna sound way different. Like every 15 feet, it's gonna change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave him a nice diagram. I was like, all right, you want your stuff to sound the best. You're going to go see a show with your friends. I was like, just draw a triangle between the main speaker stacks and the sound booth. I was like, make sure you're in that triangle. Try to be about halfway back.
Yeah. I always say by the sound person in the middle, halfway to 2/3 back.
Yeah.
And I always say the 2/3 back for safety hearing, just a little bit further than dead
So you're
center.
not just getting crushed by those subs.
I mean, just going back 20 feet could drop a few decibels. That could help. You never know.
Because it's all pressure of material through a medium, right? It's weird. A sound wave isn't actually anything. It's just pressure of whatever it's passing through.
Yep.
And I was, using the example of like, if an explosion happened in space, it doesn't actually make a sound,
No.
There's nothing for that.
No medium for it to propagate.
No medium.
Yeah. Like
Like
water.
the weird thing about how sound travels faster through denser objects. It's just fun. I was like,
It's
man,
so much
this
fun.
I was like, having
it's
an
very
audio
nerdy.
engineer for your physics tutor is really helpful for you here.
Yeah,
But
it is.
I
It
had to
is.
like resist going on like these soapbox tangents for him. I was like, okay, you're preparing for
Probably
your
doesn't
test.
care. He's 15.
Yeah. I was like, all right, I'm going to give you a little bit of like cool examples of this stuff. And hopefully he remembers that diagram. It's the cone. Yeah. Be in that cone, because ultimately the sound person is making everything sound how it is. You kind of want to be somewhere where you're in that perspective,
of where they're mixing from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like, who knows?
Yeah, and it's the same with when listening to music, playback. When people are listening to their mixes, my students and whatnot, I always tell them like try to create that equilateral triangle. Try to get in the middle between both speakers and move around your room and stuff, but try to be there to really hear it. Not a lot of people have monitors. A lot of students don't have them, so they do headphones, and that's quite different.
Yeah, and that's
hard.
It's always, and that's a challenge of like doing stuff in a basement, right, where you're, in an apartment building with other people living there. It's like you ideally want to do all your mixing on monitors, and then
quiet
check
place,
them
yeah.
on. You got to check it on headphones too. But I think we talked a little bit about the challenges of having to do a lot of mixing on headphones, and then work through the recalibration that you need to do to make that consistent. It's man, the weird thing about mixing a record too is just the amount of does it sound good? Like there's just so much stuff that you can't quantify, that everyone has their own ways of doing similar things. But that's something I think now I'm second guessing myself a lot more on, because it's You know, like, you know, there's a lot of time to second guess yourself. You know, maybe that really is the beauty of being a live engineer. But also, when you're doing live engineering, you have to work so much faster.
Yes.
And it's like it just helps sharpen your skills on what you're listening for, right?
Different skill sets.
Yeah. And I kind of felt like it was like technical skills boot camp for me a little bit, you know?
Makes you more comfortable with bleed too.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not so obsessed with it when you do record. You're aware, like, some is, in an ideal world, none would be great, but plenty is fine if you know what you're doing, how to work with it, and what it is, and how far away in decibels it is from the original sound source, what frequencies are in the bleed, all of that, you know?
And also, like, when you mix it in context, do you even hear the bleed?
No, you
know?
won't.
A lot of times.
Usually, if it's 10 decibels or more, it does not matter. You won't notice it.
Yeah, it's I got to mix a show for my friend. He was having an album release party at Shuba, so it was the first time I got to mix a show there.
Oh,
and,
nice. They have an X32 there?
Yeah. You know, pretty standard workhorse, but again, I hadn't actually used one of those.
Oh, wow.
So it was kind of
Classic.
Learning the workflow, but then like they all kind of work the same.
They do.
But that was kind of a reminder of like, oh yeah, how fast you have to work because they had a really complex setup with 2 full drum sets and an aux percussionist.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, and 3 guitarists and 4 background vocalists.
Okay, sounds a little familiar.
And there's just like the amount of stuff to make sure we had down. We're definitely scrambling, and I hope they felt like that it went as well as it could have
What
gone.
band was it?
It's called Nicholas.
Nicholas.
Nick McMillan is the singer. Amazing record. Yeah, definitely check out. It's just the word Nicholas. I'll send you a link.
Yeah, please do.
It's fantastic.
And you mixed the show?
Just mix the show, yeah.
When was this?
Must have been something like November, December-ish.
Okay.
And it's just, another reminder that live sound environment is a challenge.
It's so different. Yeah. It's hard, and it's fun.
There's you get a rush out of it, though, too, you know?
Yeah.
With that Japan tour, especially, there would be times where I would walk in, off the bullet train that we slept on through the night, and the advanced crew had set it up most of the way, and then we just have to fly. And we have like, all right, we have an hour and a half until doors, and we got to just, ring out the room, find those nodes, destroy them, get it all plugged in, done, Then the show happens, and you don't even have any time to think about it.
And can you explain to the audiences how you find the nodes or the bad resonant frequencies?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what's your process?
So if you imagine...
And maybe explain, too, articulate what these things are. So people might not have any idea what we're talking about.
A lot of yes. I'll go back into physics tutor mode, right?
Yeah, pretend you're talking to a 10-year-old.
So when you hear the pitch, like the difference between like our voices and a female voice, right? The female voice is like higher up. Or if you're playing on a piano, you go left to right. The notes go from low to high. And that's kind of defined by what we call frequency. And that's, there's a mathematical formula you can use to figure out frequency that relates to how high or low a note sounds. So there's a great like math-based foundation that you can do all this on. And if you sweep from low to high with a single tone, you can kind of excite individual frequencies until you hear that the room. So if you're in a speaker system in a big venue, you want to excite all those frequencies, very slowly to see what starts ringing out in the room. Because you've all been there where you see that microphone and you hear that screech. And like everyone kind of like, you wince.
The feedback, yeah.
That's that feedback we're talking about. So we actually want to find those intentionally and make them feedback. So we know where each room has its own personality, its own like character for what it's going to present to you as a feedback problem. So you find all of those and then you kind of have to scoop those out a little bit. So that's kind of... If you don't do that, you're going to run into lots of problems in a live sound environment.
And how many of those notches, how many of those attenuations do you have to do normally in a normal room, you think?
Depends on depends on what we were talking about, the sound treatment. Like if you look on the walls here, we have these nice foam where it breaks up the sound wave when it
Yeah,
hits it.
diffuses it.
Yeah.
Stops some of it, yeah.
And so those rooms, not too many, but the concert symphony halls, oh my goodness. Because they're designed, different venues are designed for different styles of music, right? And if you have a chamber orchestra that's really quiet and has all these string instruments, you want that to be able to amplify that sound into the audience. And so those rooms were primarily what we were dealing with in Japan, and that was a challenge.
A lot of them too were built at a time where live sound wasn't a thing, so they were built with certain acoustics to keep in mind for projection.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we come in and throw these big electronic magnets in there that are like not made. Some of this stuff are designs from 1920, 1850, 1750, something really old buildings and really old designs that worked when we had no electricity and no sound reinforcement.
Right.
But when you put a big line array in an old cathedral or an old concert hall, you had without the proper acoustic, like it wasn't built to keep that in mind with acoustic treatment. Yeah. Now it's a problem.
Like go see a show at Aragon.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
And why is that?
It's beautiful,
It looks great inside.
That beautiful
it's
dome
beautiful,
ceiling.
but the acoustics
all the sound,
are horrible.
All the sound goes up in there, swirls around, comes reflecting down at you from everywhere.
It's really bad, and it's so boomy in there, too.
But it was designed for like a chamber ensemble, like like a string quartet.
It's called a ballroom.
Yeah.
Aragon Ballroom.
Right.
It's a ballroom.
They wanted a string quartet to quietly play and then fill a 5,000 person ballroom.
Yeah, which makes sense. It was not meant for My Buddy Valentine or Smashing Pumpkins.
Poor Brittany Howard, I went and saw Alabama Shakes there.
Oh, yeah?
And it was like, that like powerful vocals. It was just,
Too much.
Too much, yeah. The room couldn't handle it.
I know that's...
And as you're a sound engineer, it's just like, there's nothing you can do at a certain
I don't
point.
know why they don't put acoustic treatment on that ceiling.
It's because it's so beautiful. It's like a historic landmark.
When was it restored last?
I don't know. I gotta imagine it's got some sort of historic landmark status that they can't modify things. Yeah.
Yeah, if I were to build a venue, I would hire. Speaking of who I would hire, an acoustician. How come you didn't go into that? That's the meeting of both worlds.
Exactly. Mostly, I would have needed to get a master's degree, and I didn't want to keep going.
You can't really get a job with that unless you have a master's degree.
Yeah, it's
one of those fields.
It's just because there isn't really acoustic engineering as a specialty of focus for an undergrad degree. So you'd have to get. A lot of times they're
at Columbia. They had just acoustics and bachelor's
Nice.
of science, just acoustics. But I don't know many programs that do that. I know they did that.
And maybe at the time, since granted, we're dating ourselves.
Oh my God, yeah.
And back in 2007, when I was applying to college, I'm not sure there were programs for it.
That's true. Just like there wasn't a lot of sound programs, like that was more new back then.
Yeah, I feel like Columbia was definitely one of the first that I heard of that actually.
Columbia
would go
for
to.
like production, and then the Art Institute for like fine art, sound design, sound art. That started in the 70s, but it was really small.
Yeah,
a few people, really, really small. Yeah, not much though. Not much.
Yeah. So that's I don't know. That's kind of where I always like to. I think my partner, she's probably like sick of hearing about this stuff. Like when we go to see a show that we like scouting out the place and like what are the acoustics of the room, and then she's probably just heard it all enough.
Has it made her more attentive to like concerts and movie theaters?
Oh yeah, for sure.
In a good way.
Yeah, she's really smart.
Yeah.
And she loves music, and she would not call herself a musician, but she definitely can sing really well. Like she was in
Have
choir.
you recorded her before?
I have, yeah, actually. And then but she has awesome taste in music, and so that was kind of a foundation of how we started talking to each other was. So it's it's cool because I think now she thinks about these things when she goes to see a show and makes sure she stands in the right place, and it's goofy.
It's what happens when anyone
just like I'm thinking a lot more about the things she's exposed me to in life.
Like what?
She's a landscape architect.
Oh right,
so,
you mentioned that.
Like
landscape architect. You don't meet many of those.
So she's
I don't know many people
think
like
her company that she does work for now, they do like the classic gardens, like formal gardens, that stuff. But it's also like public space. So it's
Okay.
kind of like public parks. She was working with the Chicago School District.
That's awesome.
For like redoing. They're like more utilitarian stuff in addition to fancy garden. I think that's like everyone kind of thinks of that, but it's it'd be like the 606. It's
Yeah,
a great
I love that.
It's a great example of
That's a
landscape
really,
architecture.
really, really cool one.
So you're like converting an old industrial space into like a really awesome public usable space.
Same thing as Palmisano Park on 28th and Halstead.
Oh,
Do
cool.
you know about that
No,
park?
no, what's that?
When you leave here, you should drive. It's right down the street. I'm going to walk there probably after this. I walk
Nice.
there almost every day. It's like a mile from here. It's not, if you go to Halstead Street and go north to 29th Street, it's between 29th and 28th. It was an old quarry. It's an old quarry. And you can see where they had the bulldozers going up and down in zigzags because they turned that into like where you can walk and landscape and go around. You could, if you strip down the green and the grass and the hills that got pushed up and man-made, you can see clearly where all the bulldozers would go, get the stuff, move granite, and then they have the whole quarry. It's filled with water. The fire department does scuba diving testing there.
Oh, yeah, because you can get that actually down deep.
It's
yeah.
deep. Who knows how deep it is, but it could be 50, 60, 80 feet deep. I have no idea. It freezes because it doesn't have a lot of movement. So I saw a lot of coyotes running around it all winter this year, which
that's
is fun.
amazing.
Kids go on it too. It freezes thick. But it's a beautiful park, and they have this awesome metal railing that hovers over this marsh, and it goes around the marsh, and it spirals back up. And there's like 5 different ways you can take, and it's a great use of an old, filthy, dirty area that was just a bunch of dirt and rocks and
Chicago's doing big things with that stuff too.
It's cool now. It's really
also, the issue with how the lake levels are changing now. So the lake is getting more volatile with its peaks and valleys.
Why is that?
Climate reasons.
What's the climate?
Yeah.
Like glaciers and
You mean that
like how the
Chinese manufacturing host, or what is it? The hoax that they're all saying.
Is that what they're saying?
It's a China hoax, right?
That's ridiculous.
No, but like so it opened up a new opportunity. All this shore remediation, they have to do a lot to reinforce the shoreline and
I can only imagine
because
that
water
pressure
erosion.
hitting.
Yeah, those
How
waves.
do they handle that? So much steel and concrete.
Yeah, it's a lot of repurposing waste, which is cool. So if you have like waste concrete, you want to create. It's just like what we're talking about with like this nice how you have it changing orientation.
Is that
so
why they
it
put all
breaks
the
it
big
up.
bricks in the break
Yeah,
up?
yeah. You can big chunks of concrete. Forgot what the name is. Riff. I think it's not like riff raff. It's something like that. There's a name. But same deal, right? You take all these like chunks of stone and kind of have them set up in a way that they can break the waves, break that energy so that it doesn't erode the shoreline. And what does that do? Then it opens you up to all these new improvement projects on the parks. So there's a lot of exciting stuff that's going to be happening.
So you break up the concrete at the park, you throw it in the lake.
Pretty much, yeah, on the edge, yeah. So you kind of reinforce where it's a problem.
But what is in that concrete that's now sitting in the water that's had decades of oils and man-made heavy metals seeping into it slowly over time? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think there's probably somebody who analyzed that.
I don't believe it. Someone's making a mistake somewhere. Someone would have analyzed it, but one of the mayors probably outsourced their job to save some money.
Make a quick billion off it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We don't need someone to analyze the rare earth metals that are seeping into concrete around the city that we've now thrown into the lake and gets into the water. That's Lake Michigan. I love it. I'm giving it crap. I love it, but I do get sketched out going underwater and like. I used to open my eyes a lot when I was a kid and my mouth, not anymore.
Yeah.
I would not do that there.
I wouldn't do it towards the southern tip of the lake, too, because there's just that's where all the heavy industry is
down.
And like that's where all those steel mills are, right? The runoff from
Michigan,
those.
Indiana, Illinois, like all. Yeah, I wouldn't either, but it sucks because it's such a beautiful lake.
It's so
and it
beautiful.
feels so good and fresh when you're in it, but then you're like, you look around, you see the steel concrete jungle of Chicago, and you look at this water, and it's all hitting the concrete, and you're like, this water's probably filthy.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way it could ever be like perfectly clean. Like, what can you do?
Clean enough to drink.
The air that's going right into it is right off from a couple million cars and their brake dust and oil and transmission fluid. Like, you can make it clean enough to probably swim in, try not to get in your eyes or your mouth, and then like take a shower when you get home, and that's probably about as clean as you can get.
good enough to drink, right?
I mean, I have a second filtration. So I go into the Brita with
nice,
the upgraded filter that's like $50, you know?
I do that.
That for getting rid of all that lead and
Yeah.
chlorine and
We
fluoride
found
and all that stuff.
we found one of the lead sampling program for the city of Chicago. Highest lead concentration in the entire city of Chicago was like a quarter mile west of where we lived. So like, all right, yeah.
Where's that?
It was like, I don't know how to say that. It's like Kos Park,
What
Kosciuszko
street?
Park, Diversity and Pulaski.
Kozuko? Kozuko?
Yeah, it's a Polish name. Admittedly, don't know,
it'd be Kosciuszko.
yeah, Kosciuszko.
Yeah, so it'd be a Kozuko. I know what it is because I know a lot of Polish people, and my parents live in Kosciuszko County, Indiana, and a Polish person once said it was like Kozusko or something, something like that.
Yeah.
I can't
because it's like a CSZ. Yeah. But
anyway,
they replaced a lot of the water mains in that area, and so it stirred up a lot of lead. So it's like
lead is everywhere. Yeah, I know you shouldn't plant or grow vegetation in Chicago, probably any major city,
because of the heavy metal in the soil.
all on the earth. The lead, the aerosols. I mean, the asbestos. I mean, everything. It's just everywhere. It's just all over the place.
Gotta get like the raised bed planters and bring in your own soil.
I would do that with the ground because it's in the air, so it's just gonna go in the soil. You have to do that in a greenhouse with an air filter, and then you could probably do it. You can't be in the earth, and you can't be exposed to the earth. That's how toxic it is. You can't have either, and they can't use the water because the water coming in the water is toxic too.
Remind me why we live in cities.
I don't know. I don't think humans probably could, even with modern technology, could in a safe, healthy way live in a city with more than probably like 20, 50,000 people.
Yeah. I mean, and you go back to like
maybe
basic
even less.
science.
Maybe less. Maybe like 10.
We're really only like hardwired as a species to handle like, groups of like up to 50 people.
Yeah, 100. I think 150 is the Dunbar's number. Like 150 is the most, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Think of like first and last names of people you know and their face and like a memory about them. I bet you it starts to fade down at like the 150th person. You know what I mean? Like how many of those people you have in your life are like, okay, first and last name, I know who they are and where they're from. I know a lot about them. We have memories together. And like that starts to just fall off once you get that high. You can't do it.
Yeah, and it's why it kind of explains a lot of like, sociology of like in-group, out-group sociology of why human beings, when we have large, complex organizations, they fall apart because like people get corrupt and they start not trusting each other because like our brains are just not hardwired to be like we're victims of our own efficiency, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're
That's
not
inefficient
supposed to be,
when you can't know everything. You can't know everyone. That's not efficient.
We want to be in a nice open field where we can see predators approaching. We don't want to be jammed in this city. But
but it's fun though. You're here and I'm here, and we do what we do for fun and for work
and
for
love.
hobby and for love because of a city. If we didn't live, we couldn't get our gigs. I couldn't get bands in all the time. You couldn't.
No connections. I mean, it's we're trapped in this beautiful, messy, complex thing. And there's something to be said about being in a city where there's all sorts of people from different backgrounds.
It's amazing.
Different, perspectives. It like forces people to grow. And
and
that's a cool thing too about like all the traveling. It's like, it really gives you perspective on things that if you don't like leave your home, if you don't go somewhere new to challenge yourself, you're not gonna get that growth, the same way.
It's just fun. It's fun
super
going to different
fun,
countries. It's fun going to different cities and states. It humanizes you.
Yeah.
It makes the world smaller. It makes you less judgmental of other cultures, religions, genders, ideologies. You're like, oh, it's not so simple. This planet is complex.
Yeah, you can't just reduce things to simple explanations. Yeah,
and we do that a lot in this country.
We try.
This country has a problem with doing that too much.
Really? Yeah.
I think it's because we've gotten too life's gotten too easy for our own good in this country.
Yeah.
So when you have nothing to do, you can turn around and start looking at stuff and judging it because your life's easy. There's no if you had a hardship, if you were really struggling, you wouldn't spend all day complaining to people on the internet. You just wouldn't have time to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd be like, I gotta eat, I gotta make money, I can't have time for that.
We're not supposed to have like access to unlimited resources. Again, it goes against how our brains are hardwired, right? We don't know what to do when it's like a dog, chasing a car. Like, it's not supposed to catch the car.
Look what happens to a dog if you just keep it in the house and don't let it run around and you just give it easy life. Like, here's food,
Yeah.
and just sit there, and your life will be easy. It'll get atrophy, its hips will go out, it'll die,
Yeah.
it'll be
It'll
depressed.
stop wanting to eat.
It'll stop running, it'll get really sad, it'll be malnourished, its hair and nails will start falling apart, just like a human being will.
Yeah. You're just like my wrist and
That's the
ankle.
sad thing about being in the city. You don't get to do that enough. Like, go
know.
out and just be in the fresh air.
Yeah.
But
That was a nice thing last summer. We went to our friends got married in it was actually Adam, the guy who played keys in the Winter Macro session.
Adam H.
Yep, Adam H. He he went out. Him and his wife, they got married right next to Banff, up in kind of west of Calgary.
Yeah.
Just like
That's a beautiful lake.
Yeah.
Isn't that supposed to be one of the most beautiful places in the world?
Gorgeous. This place called Emerald Lake.
Yeah, I've
And
heard
it's-
of it.
it's
I want to
just
go there.
Stunning.
Yeah.
You know? It's like
You
the
went there?
glacial runoff. So we went there and just like
Jealous.
did some hiking and like, man, I love the city, but
We're going to make it to the wilderness one day, trust
you
me.
know, we just got to make it somehow so that we can own a place outside of the city
The goal
and still live in
the
a
goal,
city, right?
Michael, is to own a place exactly outside and in a little tiny apartment in the city, and then a nice little cabin or a house out in the wilderness. But the goal is to get popular / respected / important enough to where people will come to that out
Yeah.
there to work to do this.
Build another structure, private studio, you know?
Mhm. But you got to be well respected enough to have clients to come out to you. That's the hard part, you know. If you can make a living where people come out 3-4 hours away from the city, because it's a whole experience. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of like what the old place used to be like where I lived. It was enough of an experience for
It was
people
an
to like,
enclave, you know?
yeah,
And it's just
for people to come out because it's like, oh, the yard, we take our time. We got the house. It's spacious. We can be as loud as we want whenever we want. There's a lot of things on the walls, and there's roommates and people everywhere and people to talk to. It's kind of like it was something to do, and it was okay that it took up time. And it was next to 294, so that made it easy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it made it really easy.
that's kind of like, you know, going back to like Muscle Shoals, you know? Like that studio, people would go way out of their way.
Way out of their way. You gotta. It's hard to get enough of a reason to do that to people, but I would like to have that someday. Like have it be an experience. Like you go out and there's above the studio is like sleeping quarters. So you're gonna stay the night when you go there. You have cool coffee. You know, do some archery in the backyard. I don't know, play some pool.
Oh, yeah.
You know, have bonfires, make food, record music all day, do a podcast, play video games,
Start a commune.
start a now. Yeah, I know.
Start growing our own food.
Now it's
go
starting to
off
sound
grid.
culty. You got to be
Yeah.
careful. You got to be
Yeah,
careful
that's
with
true.
that.
That spectrum turns out it's actually more circular. You get too far around.
I know it's a deadly balance of like not going too far with trying to get a bunch of people to like be on the same page about something.
You need like a charismatic leader. But you're like that everyone we're like, wait a second. That's dangerous.
It is. It is. You don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's
But
so
I'd be
funny.
in a cult with you, you know?
Yeah, you would.
You want to start a cult?
I've already been accused enough times, so I'm good on that one. I always say how you can prove you're not one is the people that you were once with. They all have to collectively let everyone know, like, no, it was fine. It wasn't like that. No one had to do anything, and we were all just hanging out.
Wait, it wasn't like DZ policy that you had to like turn in your cell phones?
Yeah, turn your cell phones, and you have to give me one piece of equipment. That's how I acquired all
And then
the equipment.
I need your bank account routing numbers.
If I was running a call, I ran the worst one ever.
Yeah.
I came out in the end with just a bunch of debt. It was the worst cult of all time.
The cult of capitalism.
Yeah.
We all end up with that.
No, not a cult. But got convinced or got accused of that a lot because people were like, how do you get everyone to do stuff together like collectively? I'm like, I don't know. For the other 364 days a year we're not doing this fest, they see how much I'm giving and like doing stuff. So like for this one day they're like giving it, like they're paying it back like forward
Yeah.
towards me. Like it's that simple. It's that simple
it's
of
like
a math
friendship
equation.
and camaraderie.
Yeah,
you
we've
know?
just been friends for a while. They see that for the whole other part of the year, I'm trying to provide a space for people and like help out the community. So like for one weekend, a bunch of friends help me out. Like it's a pretty simple trade, pretty fair actually. And we just kind of had that formula, and it worked. Like pretty hard to find that. I wasn't expecting to do that, but it worked.
But you know, when the next chapter of DZ Fest opens up in the city,
Trying.
you'll get there. You know,
We're trying. A lot of people are trying to help. I feel
there's just
grateful.
more red tape to deal with, but you'll get
Way
there.
more red tape.
Yep.
Like it's only red tape.
Yeah.
Like you have to systematically break down each red tape And it's good because it means safety. This is how people don't die. Fire code,
Right.
like we were talking about earlier, electrical stuff. You don't want people in your position that are working a festival to get electrocuted when they're doing like the setup.
Yep.
That can happen.
Or bass player. Like feel like that's the most common thing. With those thick cables, you get that
all that metal,
that loop, right? That loop that's your hands.
And then they touch the mic. Bam.
Yep.
You don't want that. So
Talking about like Woodstock, right?
Talking about Woodstock, about a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've been shocked for my own system many times where these come in handy, these covers.
Oh yeah, definitely. It gets a little disc so you don't complete the arc.
I feel so bad when it happens to musicians. They're just like, and you're like, oh no. It's embarrassing when it's your home. You're like,
oh yeah.
God, how am I doing this to somebody? Yeah.
But sometimes you can't predict it too, though. You know, it's where electricity. I'm like,
it gets mystical too, because you can
Yeah.
have everything right, but then you're outside and there's the right amount of humidity and condensation in the air, and the dew point is different. And now being a meteorologist is important.
Yeah.
And they're on a certain type of material, like a carpet with static, and they're
Right.
not wearing rubber soles.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, what shouldn't be a problem with electricity, enough static was created in it because everything's metal. You did create a charge, and now it arcs and jumps, and boom, somehow you got shocked. And you're like, wait a minute, this shouldn't be happening.
That was the craziest thing about being in Alaska, right? In Fairbanks, it was negative 45. There's no humidity at all, right?
Yeah.
Everything you touched indoors shocked you.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why, because what the deal with that was.
The static charge it probably gets dispersed more evenly when you have the humidity in the air because everything has that moisture, so it could charges can go around.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about that, to be honest.
Yeah. It was just,
But it's
that was
gotta be
something I
something like
noticed. It was like everything I touched, I was just getting shocked left and
There's
right.
probably something to that. With
And,
no
and it was
humidity.
consistent whether it was like at the venue or hotel, airport. I mean, I guess those were the only three places I went in those 24 hours. But
Did you have to learn, or have you learned anything, like any tricks of the trade when dealing with humidity when doing live sound?
not much because we only
You work indoors mostly.
indoors. Yeah,
And that's usually pretty
we
controlled.
worked one outdoor show, which was awesome. It was at the Miller stage or whatever it is in Houston. So it was like the Pritzker Pavilion
Oh,
in
yeah.
Chicago. It was like Houston's version of that.
Okay.
It's the only time I did a show of that size outside. But I'm sure you get on the festival circuit, those people probably have to deal with
Oh, my God.
a whole lot of another set of problems because that festival circuit, that's a whole nother grind.
And they're not stationary systems.
You're setting it up from
And
scratch.
that's where you run into problems.
Right.
When you can have an infrastructure and a stationary system and it's past the code and it's always passing its code and everything's good, that's why your venues, you don't have as many problems in like an established venue.
Exactly.
When you're building, that's the issue with DZ Fest. That's why every mic I always put a windscreen on them. Even if it wasn't shocking someone, I'm like, I am not.
Just not messing around.
Just put a windscreen on every single vocal mic, even if it's fine, even if it doesn't need it, not dealing with shocks.
Yeah.
Because it could happen. You can't make it perfect, especially
And
like that.
it's also too, they could have something messed up in the amp they brought or something too, right? And they didn't even realize. We were playing out of this twin reverb one of my good friends has, and he was playing and kept on. I could see him flinching. I was like, Jeremy, what's going on here? So then we had our friend look at it, and it was a modded twin reverb, so it's a 1x15 speaker. And the person who did the work, once our friend looked in, he's like, oh, wow. He's like, look at this. This is a short, So that was like 85 watts of tube power with a short circuit. Like,
That can mess you
very
up.
lucky that it was only little shocks. I mean, and the reason he was getting shocked was because he plays on a steel body, like resonator, baritone guitar.
Yeah.
Right? So it's got thick strings, steel body.
All that metal.
It's the thick. I think it's like the thick strings. It provides more of a contact point
Oh, of
with your
course.
fingers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And heat finger picks. So it was one of those where he kept on like flinching, and somebody could have been killed playing that amp.
Yeah, that holding it, or he grabs the mic, and that sound system's on a different circuit,
Yeah.
and that's where it gets
And
bad.
then you have it's not even a ground lift. It was like a short inside
within
the amp.
itself.
And
Yeah,
then it just feeds into it. Yeah. I don't mess around with electricity.
you gotta be careful. If you're starting getting shocked, unplug it. If you don't know what you're doing, get someone in who does. Test stuff with multimeters. Thank God for YouTube. Do a little bit of research. Have some people explain some things. But bring it into a local amp shop. It's
Oh, yeah.
usually a ground issue or a circuit being not completed. It's usually,
Yeah, something got knocked loose, or something got disconnected, or somebody did a patch job, and you don't when you buy something used, you don't really know what they did to it.
No.
It's kind of like with a building, right? You don't necessarily want to open the walls and see all the
inners,
all the things that
the
are
insides,
in there.
the guts. No, not with an old building.
Yeah.
Aren't you? You said you were doing that, right?
We'll see. Yeah.
You're like, we're not talking about this right now.
Yeah. Ask me at the end of summer.
End of summer? That's okay. Okay.
But ideally, I will be thinking about all these because I do want to set up my own, right now I have a modified basement space, but I do ideally want to set up one properly where I redo the wiring so I can have, the basically like snakes built into the walls, all that good stuff,
Just make sure that the electrical wiring make that thick, 10 gauge, go all out.
Yeah.
Go above 8 gauge or 12 or even 14, what they usually recommend. I say whatever legally you can, the thickest you can go, even if it's overkill.
Yeah,
just do
safety
it anyway.
factor, right?
I mean, it'd be nice that from your circuit breaker, even if you're running cable 100, 200 feet, that there's no loss based on resistance over that distance.
Right, yeah,
That'd be great.
definitely.
That you still get your 120 watts, your 15 amps right at the actual outlet, and it's working right. So that's what I would do. Go real thick on it. Overkill.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you're setting it up yourself from scratch, it's like you may as well do it right, so then you don't have to go back and redo it, right?
Yeah.
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 The lessons that you think about is someone in your mid-30s.
We sound like old men.
I know.
You're like, wait, I got to make sure that it's 10 gauge. Like the kids right now are like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I like tinkering. I love digging in there. Turn off your circuit breaker first. Turn off the main one. Don't even mess with that.
Yep.
I've been there, done that.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
We have a mystery box with a bunch of like twisted wires with caps on it, and we're like, well, they're like,
Wait, that sounds like an old fuse breaker box, and they just bypassed it by connecting it and kept going, right?
So yeah, there's some stuff.
Yeah, you want to maybe get those fully
It's stuff
connected.
that's like a little more intense than the couple power conditioners I bought. So I think there's more at play to why my desktop got fried than maybe just the space heaters.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Because if you have like space heater and then a furnace kicks on, that spike, when the high power draw happens. I was reading too that when you turn off those really intense power draw sources, then the circuit takes a second to readjust, and then it can flood all the electronics of whatever else is still plugged in.
Yeah.
Ugh, just frustrating.
Yeah, you have to be really careful. I see a lot of people using space heaters and blow dryers and stuff that uses 15 amps. It could be 1,800 watts, microwaves.
Yeah.
On extension cords, all in the same circuit. They're like, and they're wondering why it's not, or they're like, my space heater doesn't work well. It's like, that's because it's not, you are only letting it draw like 3 amps. It needs to draw like 12.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like super weak. You got to turn everything, put it on its own circuit,
Yeah.
your space heater, and don't put it on anything else. Anything at that 12 to 15 amp needs to be on its own circuit and not connect to anything else. Not the refrigerator, because that when that Freon pump kicks on and it then it's too much power. And it's basic stuff. Most people don't know what these numbers mean. They don't read them. They just plug. They're so used. Kids grow up just being able to plug everything in. They don't know. Electricity is like ancient to them. I used to think it was amazing learning about like Tesla and what's his name?
Edison versus Tesla.
Yeah. It's so cool that I always wanted to be an inventor when I was a kid. So I was like, just make stuff.
Man, I mean, to also talk about like the brutality of the times. Did you ever read about like the PR campaign Edison did against Tesla?
Mm-hmm.
Even though like AC DC, they'll both mess you up. Like I think he did something where he like hooked up an elephant in a public square to AC power and electrocuted it to death as a public spectacle to like warn people of the dangers of alternating currents.
This has been going on forever too.
Yeah.
Using public opinion, like propaganda to change
And it's
public
like
opinion.
DC will kill you. Like it's not an AC problem.
No, electricity is electricity.
Yeah, you hook DC up, it'll kill you too. And it's just like, but also like brutality of the times. Like, man, that's some bad Edison was a bad man.
He was. I mean, there's a lot of bad men out there that do that stuff. And I watched and smelt and seen my friend's. He had like a 1970 or 1969 Ford van, like a really cool old van, and he called it Big Butter. It was like a big yellow van. It was sick. But one day we were actually driving to Urbana-Champaign. We were driving to Tolono. Right next to Urbana-Champaign.
Yeah, or Earth Analog.
Earth Analog, exactly, to visit my friend Larry that lives down in Tolono. And we're taking the van, and all of a sudden I just like smell burning. We're about to get onto the highway, 294 off 95th Street in Hickory Hills. And he pulls over and opens the hood, and a piece of the hood metal was touching one of the battery leads, the positive terminal, and it welded the battery terminal to the hood.
Oh,
like
my
that's how much hot heat it generated. Plasma. I mean, it's probably like 5,000 degrees.
Plasma arcs. Yeah,
it was completing that circuit. It was melting, and it melted the bolt, a lug nut that was on the one that goes on top of it to hold the wire. That got fused to the door, and it completely melted the hood to the battery. And that's DC current.
Yeah,
and
you touch the hood,
Oh my God, it was smoking. It completely fused. I mean, how hot you have to get to take iron, a lug nut, and fuse it to an iron hood. You know what I mean?
That's crazy. and then if you touch it with two hands, then you get that arc through your heart and you get killed. You know?
Yeah, somehow I was like, dude, I was so scared. I was like, be careful touching everything. Like, who knows what could be electrical right
I mean,
now.
that's what I was reading is a huge problem with the Cybertrucks.
Oh, really?
Is that when they charge, of course they're like, you're hearing all sorts of stuff about how shitty those trucks are, right? But there is a mode where when they were charging, it actually ungrounded the entire vehicle because they're built so cheaply that the frame of the vehicle became connected when you plug them into charge. So then people were getting shocked when they would brush up against the edge of the Cybertruck.
It's all steel.
Because it's one giant circuit just waiting to electrocute
one big piece
you.
of metal.
Yeah. Hooked up to I don't know how many amps those chargers are. They got to be robust though.
Oh my God, a lot.
'Cause amps, that's what'll kill you, right?
Yeah, it's the amps.
Yeah.
It's not the voltage. People misunderstand that.
Yeah.
It's the actual locomotive pool of amperage with voltage, resistance, and watts at the end result. That's the thing that'll get you. That's why like power lines, it's traveling in massive volts, like tens of thousands of volts, and the low ampere, and it flips at the what's it called, transformer.
Yeah, when Edison realized actually he needed Tesla's alternating current all along to transmit
DC
it.
can't go very far.
Exactly.
No.
Anyways, that's some nerd stuff.
No, yeah. Those guys have been gone a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been propaganda and people tricking people to get something. It's happened with cigarettes. It happened with marijuana, reefer madness. They convinced us that was horrible compared to all the other shit that we were at. Alcohol,
they changed
heroin.
the name of it because they, played on people's racism.
Racism and paper industry. They didn't want the paper industry to go out of business because hemp is so much more durable and cheaper and faster to grow than
cotton.
Trees and cotton.
Yeah,
and
hemp
wood.
was like a superior fiber for clothing too.
It still is.
Yeah.
And pot plants, marijuana grows fast compared to a tree.
Yeah, uses less water too.
It's a miracle plant.
Yeah, it's a weed.
Who would have thought? It's not like we smoke or anything.
Yeah. I mean, this is not, a disclaimer. We're not being paid by the cannabis industry.
Big cannabis. If big cannabis exists, I'm all for them because anytime I go to a weed dispensary, it's the best, nicest, most fun customer service experience every time, anywhere. Because when your employees get to be stoned and serve weed to people, everyone's having a good time.
Sorry, don't you mean your local bud tender?
Yeah, your local bud tender. I love that it's like one of the only jobs where people are just getting high on their own supply and then everyone's just high and they're always trying to hook you up. Unlike every company where they're trying to make more money off of you, these companies are like, oh, if you come on this day, we'll give you a free joint. They're always trying to like hook you up. They're trying to always save you money. Oh, if we come here, we'll do 25% on you and theirs, but we won't put on, like, they're trying to always help you.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas most businesses are like not telling you the trade secrets, trying to make more money off of you. It's hard to get a bunch of mid-20-year-old stoners to be on top of like the nasty part of capitalism where you're trying to like do marketing and trick people. You're not going to get people that think and live that way to do that. So you get the opposite and everyone's like, oh man, you drove here to, okay, let me try to hook you up.
Yeah.
I'll put it on a separate bill so you get double
That's
the
why you got
discount.
to drive to Michigan, right?
That's all I do.
Dude, I went to
all I
a
do.
dispensary in Michigan once, and they're like, "Oh, here's the 10 for 10 deal." I'm like, "What's that?" Because it's like a new customer sign up thing. Like, "Oh, 10 cartridges for $10 each." I'm like, "There's $65 each in Chicago." Like
$650
sir,
deal.
Like, yeah, you just saved me $550, and like I don't need to think about buying a cartridge for the next 4 to 5 years. Like, like how is this even like? How are you? Is your business okay? You
It's
know?
because there's so many people going there.
Yeah.
I asked I go to New Buffalo. It's the best spot.
Yeah.
Is there you go?
Yeah, I mean it's yeah,
Hop all around New
I
Buffalo.
mean it's just that exit from the highway. It's just there's like
right
6
across
or
the
7 of them.
border.
Yeah,
And I talked to the people there, and they're like people from Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio. People from 5 hours, 6 hours.
the
will
money you
drive there.
save, like it saves money for you and
It's
offsets the
7
gas
to
cost.
11 times cheaper, depending on what you get. But I've done the math enough times. It's roughly 9 times cheaper.
Yeah.
Almost 10 times cheaper to drive 1 hour, for 10 times cheaper. It's insane. It's
Yeah.
like
What a
weed
beautiful
mecca.
world we live in, right?
But it's kind of goofy to do that.
Yeah.
Like it's legal here, but it's so expensive here. You're like, this is dumb. This
Oh
is
yeah,
outrageous
and it's
how
like
expensive
you
it is.
know mid-tier quality here too. You know,
It's not,
not
that
that I
good.
know. Right?
It's not that good. I mean, it's legal, and we're way over 21, so who
yeah,
cares, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And it is funny, while you're doing this, we live in a legal state. We're way past 21. We're adults. We have to go to another legal state, and then in that process, we have to commit all these crimes, just bringing it back
Yeah.
for trafficking.
yeah, exactly. Like don't get don't you know
It's so
don't
stupid.
speed in Indiana.
You
tell
see how
that.
arbitrary the law is. It's
Yeah.
like, wait, so it's legal here and here, but if I go from here and bring it through here, it's a plant, it's a weed, I can like go to jail.
Yeah,
I can get in like a lot of trouble if they want to throw the book at me for trafficking. Like, what is this so goofy?
yeah.
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 Anyway,
Well, you know, what a world.
wow, look at that.
Yep.
Anything else you'd like to promote?
No.
Maybe talk about
Oh,
the
yeah.
bands you're in.
Okay, yeah.
Promote your music.
So
Where people
the
can find you for work, for freelance gigs.
oh
for
yeah.
anything.
So you can find me Malt Audio on Instagram. I'm always available. You can just send me a message. I'll respond there. If you need any help with live sound engineer for a show or for tours or for recording help. Also, if you need a touring musician, I'm looking to maybe do a little bit more playing on the tours. Especially bass. That's my happy place. It's
That's
just playing
okay.
bass. But yeah, Winter Mako is the name of the band. We just did a 5-song
It
set.
was a blast.
It was
So much
so
fun.
fun.
It was so much
and,
fun.
yeah.
Wild. Maybe I have to redo my whole cable system. I gotta.
Well, I hope. I
I use it as an excuse every time a band comes in where I have to like redo a bunch of stuff. I'm like, okay, it's time that every couple of months you have to like rewire everything just to clean it all up.
I'm sorry about the additional 8 input.
No, it made me
mess.
call Focusrite in England and make sure they walk me through how to hook up the most crazy connections of 3 interfaces. It's great to have 24 inputs.
Yeah, I guess now you're set up for the future.
24,
24, right?
That covers most things.
Yeah.
24.
It's just like amazing, and that's Focusrite to Focusrite.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same manufacturer. You're not even getting a manufacturer to communicate with a different manufacturer.
It's the same make and model units across the board. ISA, or not ISAs, Claret 8 pre-Axis,
Yeah.
3 of them. And yet, to make them work, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the optical cable stuff. I had a situation too where I was doing like a Behringer, linking it to a Steinberg. And it was like 2 different companies, and like I got it to work once, moved it to a new place, reset it up, didn't work. Clocking is a whole thing too.
The word clock, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a whole thing.
yeah.
So, Instagram.
Oh yeah,
Instagram,
Instagram. Yeah, and then if you are around Chicago, check out like Space Gators. I'll be playing some shows with Middle Sister. I think we have a show coming up at G-Man Tavern.
Oh, nice.
In a few
Are they
weeks.
reopened? Weren't they closed for a second?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Or am I thinking of? I'm thinking of Golden Dagger.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Thinking
yeah.
of Golden- not G-Man.
R.I.P.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
G-Man. Okay, yeah, so around Chicago. So
And that's
catch you
all I
on
have
tour
booked for now. Yeah. And
or
then,
try to tour.
yeah, we'll the Juneau Dunes in June. I think we'll have oh, that's funny. I didn't think about
The
that.
Juneau Dunes in June.
Yeah, I think we'll have a Subterranean show.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, check them out. They're fantastic. So
And then your music can be found everywhere,
yeah,
right?
Spotify,
iTunes,
all those places.
Pandora,
Yeah,
Napster,
maybe, yeah.
Pirate Bay.
Yeah, Pirate Bay,
LimeWire.
especially. Yeah.
Huzzah.
If you're still feeling dangerous, I'll upload the stems to Pirate Bay.
He's uploading the 192 32 bits. Each song is 17 gigabytes.
Yeah, FLAC. Yep.
Oh man, this was great.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
fun
Thanks
to have
for
you
having
in.
me.
Yes, it was a pleasure to see you outside of just recording, because that's almost
yeah.
like 100% of how we have ever communicated.
Oh,
just like
yeah.
recording or something like that. So it's a pleasure to see you outside of that, and it's always great to talk to another person who makes music, records music, does a lot of things within that world, not just one, but like 3, 4, 5.
Got to be teaching too. It's
Teaching.
Like Steven is another one of those. He operates a music tutoring business.
Oh,
and
okay.
You talk to enough musicians, like, yeah, you got to have.
I do a lot.
Got to do a lot.
3,
to make it
4,
work.
5 gigs.
What we do for love, right?
But it's fun.
Yeah.
And it broadens the whole horizon. You start to see how the whole thing works, you know?
Yeah.
Once you know the way broadly, you see it in all things.
And to tie it all in too, it's like music and what we were talking about with outdoor spaces, the appreciation I've gained perspective through my partner. So these are all like things that help establish a sense of community. And like, especially now when a lot of things are looking more and more uncertain,
Yeah.
we need these things like music and public spaces and arts. Like this is the stuff that reminds us that we're all in this together.
We're human. It humanizes us.
Yeah,
you know?
despite the extreme challenges we're about to face, but we've always faced these challenges before.
We'll hop right over them. DZ Fest will come back.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have the music art mecca of planet Earth here in Chicago. I can't wait. You'll definitely play. If it comes back, we'll have to play.
Heck yeah,
That'd be
look forward
crazy,
to it.
wouldn't it?
We're all gonna make our own quick billion someday, right?
Yeah. Yes. And help each other out in the process.
Yes, yeah, and give back.
Give back.
But yeah, thanks again, man.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. Great to have you. Thank you all for listening. Check out Mike's music, Instagram, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, everywhere. 18 video sessions at DZ
Yeah,
Records.
yeah.
So you can
And,
check out all the bands he was in
with
at DZ Records.
5 more to go. Yeah, so it'll be
5
up to
more
23.
to go. 23. I think you might be in second place behind Matthew McNeil,
All right.
who, from Texas. He's just
Oh,
been
yeah.
through so many times.
Yeah,
so
he was just in recently.
Mhm. Yeah, we did 3 videos. Yeah, a month ago. So you might be. I think he's at like 30, and you're right there.
Okay.
Well, that's still impressive, though.
I got some work to do then.
Thank you, Mike, for coming in. Looking forward to the next time. we do
yeah,
this.
always.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Ciao.